people. How are we doing? I hope you guys have had a good week. Happy Friday. Welcome to our little ritual of a Friday morning hangout where we tap energy, we share our lives with each other, and we explore some of life's questions, but always, always, always through the lens of relationship. Because I really just believe that that's what life is. Life itself is a relationship between self and other. I think for me, at least, that's how my brain works. If I'm ever lost or if I'm ever confused, I just try to put whatever it is that I'm trying to understand in the framework and the lens of relationship. And the shadow, of course, is no different. And that's what we are looking at today. So today we are doing messages from your shadow. And I'm really excited about this one. I'm also a little nervous, a little trepidatious, but sometimes that's how it can feel to interact with the shadow. And I think it's so interesting. I said this to Alex when I was like, I think I want to do this reading because Pluto just went direct on the 10th. For those of you who kind of watch these things, I don't know about you, but I was counting down the days for when Pluto was going direct because, Pluto spends about half of the year direct, about half of the year. It's give or take, like head on. And when Pluto is direct, you feel empowered, you want to get things done, you have a lot of get up and go if you are a Pluto oriented person, especially, and if that's a major part of your chart. And I know that I have just really been needing that because your girl has just been dragging behind here for like the last 2 months at least. So I'm really true. Yes, Pluto was giving it its all this time. I agree. So we are out of that. And I feel like now that Pluto is direct, you could have found that you actually have a lot of shadow material to process here at this time. Like we just sit at that threshold and as we're like kind of moving forward. So I just feel like this is a really auspicious time to actually be having this kind of a conversation. Now, the other thing that I want to say about the shadow before we get in, just to kind of set the tone of like how I'm thinking for this reading, shadow can mean a lot of things. And when I think about the shadow, I think about, it's the parts of ourselves that we kind of disown. And that's much different from them not existing at all or not being able to be tapped into. It's almost like it can feel like putting on wet clothes, just it doesn't feel right. You don't feel entirely comfortable in those traits because, maybe it isn't exactly a natural part of your personality, or like the family that you grew up in and the friends that you were around, they really did like you better in another energy, or they praised you whenever you displayed different traits. And I don't really think we appreciate enough as people how much that impacts our quote unquote personality. So the whole take on spirituality where your ego, your personality is not really who you are. It really is the result of so many intermingling factors, and so many of those are outside of our control. And all of that, being socialized as a young child, from an early age, that is still a part of the spiritual process that really cannot be avoided, where we get socialized, we build up our personality, and because we've built up our personality, we can then transcend that personality and we can sort of look at these things from a different angle. And that's really the tone that I want to take here with this reading. So think more of the shadow. It's not things that you aren't. So when I'm describing your shadow here, you probably, if I'm hitting the nail on the head for you, unless you've already done an inordinate amount of like work, you can have that feeling of like, that's not me at all. No, I don't want to be that. It's things you wouldn't be proud to be, or it's things you don't readily identify with. And the power of the shadow is that when we tap into those things, what we do is we break molds and we break patterns. So areas in your life where you feel stuck or you feel powerless, right? Pluto rules over the shadow. It rules over power. You can have some kind of a big breakthrough or a big transformation because, you can't solve a problem with doing the same things that you've always done. It's just an impossibility. And so I think sometimes that's the part of our mind, again, another theme of control, that we just we want what we want the transformation, but we don't want to have to break into a new part of ourselves in order to achieve that transformation because, again, it feels like breaking with the identity. But when you actually do tap into a different part of yourself, then you realize the falseness of whatever identity you thought you had in the past, but that's what actually usually gives you the traction to break out of a certain paradigm and to actually obtain different results for yourself. So I just wanted to put that into a bit of perspective here. And of course, just hold this all very lightly and contemplate just when we're dealing with shadow, because again, it's things that are unconscious. So you might not have that conscious logical knowing to validate it or back you up, but it also doesn't mean that everything here does apply. So just try to kind of hold things open in your energy. All right. Hi, Vidya. All right, so we have 3 piles as per usual. The first pile, I know you guys can see this better on the thumbnail, but just for those people who are just popping in, so the first pile is this gnosis energy. The second pile is this crone energy. The third pile is the box. And I'll hold them all up for you. Alex, though, like when he was showing me these cards yesterday, he did notice like there's sort of a connection here between the first pile and the second pile because you see this bird and like the bird is kind of flying and it looks like it's flying right into the hands of the crone. And I just thought that was a really interesting observation. And I don't know like what that could potentially mean here for some of you, but there might be a connection between pile number 1 and pile number 2. I'm not sure what that connection would be. Obviously, I haven't like tapped into this energy, but I'll hold all of these up. So this side is pile number 1, pile number 2, pile number 3. So I'll just hold it up for you to do your thing. Meditate on these energies, be drawn into your stack. Keep an open mind about how it is that your intuition is guiding you today versus other days. Because sometimes how you're guided to your pile is information for you to have in and of itself. You know, maybe when Pluto isn't direct, maybe your intuition isn't as spot on as it usually is. And so you keep getting drawn into these piles that aren't really actually your energy, but maybe it's energy that is still important for you to know. Like it's somebody else in the equation or something. So, or sometimes you can get drawn into a pile because really your pile was the other 2 piles that you weren't drawn to at all. What does that mean for you? So everything that happens in this is in tarot to me is a sacred space. It's all unfolding for you. It's more of a process than it is just a stream of words. That's such a one-dimensional way of absorbing a spiritual process and absorbing like tarot messages. And I just want to kind of open, I think they really want you to be porous and like open here for this, this shadow reading. They're really like kind of wanting me to, like, this is experiential, right? I'm also reminding some of you, I think some of you, this would be more productive if you did take just a moment, even if it was just 5 minutes, to just like calm your energy or meditate in order. I'm hearing they're having trouble getting around some blocks in your conscious mind, in your logical mind here for some of you. And it would be really fruitful if you did take a moment and like actually just center yourself. For this reading in particular, I just heard that that's specific here for some people. Some of you already have meditated. Some of you are in a great place. So only take that if it resonates. Okay. Getting into pile number 1 here, this Gnosis card. Okay. So, okay. I just heard the song from REO Speedwagon. It's like, now if you're tired of the same old story, oh, turn some pages. It's like, I'll be here when you are ready to roll with the changes. Amy Lynn, thank you so much for the $6.99. I'll be here when you're ready to roll the changes. I feel like that's a direct message to you from your shadow. Your shadow is really fun, pile number 1. So I don't know if you've been stuck in a cycle, stuck in a rut here lately, like in your life, but that function of the shadow that I was sort of just describing very naturally, and I was just in flow. I was in process, right? I wasn't thinking about it and I wasn't following my typical routine. Sometimes that happens with me in these readings when I just let go. I like to do the piles and I like to jump right into it. I don't like to do a lot of hubbub at the beginning. It's just not, I just think that any messages that come through typically will come through in a pile, but I broke with that pattern today and I naturally tapped into what wanted to come through from this message. So I'm getting that, I think this is a very logical group. Maybe you always have to be on. You're like always the responsible one. Maybe this is the group with like a planner. And you want everything to unfold, like, because this is the way that it would be nice, you know, if you were done by 5 p.m. and, you know, if you were in bed by 9 p.m. and you had your afternoon snack at 2:30, because maybe you're very busy, or you're just the type of person, you have a lot of responsibilities and people always have to rely on you. I think that's what your identity is sort of oriented around, is like, I am accountable, I'm responsible, I am reliable, I get things done. And that's your conscious self is very much like that. So your shadow traits that you very much have disowned or moved away from, I think is very flower child is what I want to say. So maybe some of you could actually be very drawn to like hippie culture, maybe even decorate with like flowers, or maybe even like art, like you're drawn into art of like, or like you're drawn to movies like Tarzan, you know, or something. I'm hearing a quote from Roy on Ted Lasso where he was talking about the kind of adult activity that he likes to watch is people in the woods, because he could never be that free. Like, I wonder if there's something like that. I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing because it's cute. You know, so there could be something here like that where, again, like you're just very logical. So but your shadow self is like an artist. Maybe you don't even think that you could do art, or when you approach art, again, you think that there needs to be a technique and you want to learn the technique with your paintbrush. And if you don't produce something that is appealing or that you could sell or something like that, then you just don't want to be a part of it, and you think that that means that you're not an artist. But it's more just about like creating something and tapping into that part of yourself that just like was a child once and wanted to like throw the flour around the kitchen when your mom wasn't looking, or like, not because, just because you hadn't developed that. It's like tapping into childlike energy, especially like that energy of like, you didn't know that flour cost money, when you were 3 years old. You just knew that it was like funny, and like fun. Tapping into that side of yourself, which is very much there. And, yeah, I think maybe this is a group where even if you do tap into it, it might make you feel safer if you were like from 6 to 7, I will go crazy in my home, but like, I don't know. I just feel like if you can, this is about having an experience. This is just about like flowing. And yeah, maybe, and Spirit is saying like, it's not wrong, to be the way that you are. That's not what they're trying to say. They're just saying this could round you out, and it could potentially, there's like a lot of magic that's waiting for this group. I'm hearing Eat, Pray, Love. So like her whole thing is, again, she was an author. She has deadlines and schedules, and she's very good with, putting prose, but she just up and left her life. She stepped out of the box of everything that she was supposed to be. She followed her heart. She ate a bunch of pasta. She, she went to India and she prayed, like she just followed her heart, and it ended up changing her whole life. And Gnosis here is, in this deck, there's different sections, and it's one of like the alchemy. It's an initiation. It's a process. And that brings me back to the song, I'll be here when you're ready to roll with the changes. Like, I think this is a group where it's like, because if your logical mind can't fathom a way and a path and a structure to a new life, then you think that it is not existent. My left hand is just itching like crazy. And like when your left hand itches, holds true for me. It means that you can have money coming in. So some of you may be able to actually make money with this side of you. Like there's a new life where it's like you can make money. I'm hearing this side to you is actually very valuable, but it's not valuable in a way that can be milked, is what I'm hearing. Like that your logical mind likes to milk things. Not because it's bad, but because it knows that it has to get by in the world and stuff. So it's trying to, I think this is a planner group too, because you don't like to be caught off guard, and you know that there are dangers. You're very pragmatic. You're very sober-minded. But there's just certain things that this logical mind cannot account for. And I think that's all your guides want to introduce to you. And I think some of you are hungry for magic in your life as well. You want to have these experiences where you meet a soulmate, or you fall in love under the moon, or, you have some kind of a mystical experience, or you're just guided or you're led. But your logical mind is not the path to that. It is the right side of the brain. That is, okay, I just heard stroke of insight. Some of you should really, I mean this, okay, hear me say this. You should read Stroke of Insight by Jill Bolte Taylor. Okay, I haven't thought of that book in like 10 years. Or listen to her interviews. That's your girl, okay? That's your girl, pal number one. She's going to help introduce you to your shadow self, because it's very much like her. She was a neurosurgeon, I believe. She was some kind of she did something with the brain, and she understood the brain. But her whole story is that she understood the brain so much more from going through an experience of having a stroke and having certain parts of her brain that she was over-reliant on, frankly, offline. There's another man who was some kind of neurosurgeon, and he died, and I cannot remember his name, but he's in like the big near-death experience. He has a lot of videos. Like if you look into near-death experiences and you look up neurosurgeon, like he's one that talks a lot about it. And so he was very, very left-brained. And then after this experience that he really, frankly, should not survive from, and he even said like all of his doctors could not account for why he survived and everything. It left him completely changed. But going back to Jill Bolte Taylor, it's like, again, her job was to study the brain, but she studied it from this logical, I know everything, I know what's connected to what, and we don't know a lot about the brain, but, she knew what there was to know about the brain. But again, it was much different to have an experience of her brain. And it was an initiation, and it was this like process of what the brain is and what the brain isn't, and what is she looking to find in the brain that's not actually there, or it's not, you see what I'm saying? So I feel like you can't really account for that. And I just want to keep they're saying it again, Jill Bolte Taylor, Stroke of Insight. What you're doing is you're going to Amazon right now, or you're getting on, you don't have to spend money. You go on your library, go. And that came out in another reading where, for some of you, again, who you are more, I think it might be safer for you to explore. I think you might find yourself on like a biography kick where you are reading about people who lived. Also, I'm hearing like Frida Kahlo is another one, like people who are like more living this other life, so you can kind of explore it and you can kind of understand that there is I'm like this too. I've lived a life like this too, where I was very logically minded, and then all of a sudden my life just wasn't working out for me, and I was like, F this, and I just followed my heart, and it ended me up in exactly the right places that I could have never accounted for. I never could have planned for that, like, in my entire life. And because of that, I know that I know things on such a deep level that if you haven't had those experiences, when people talk about these things, it does seem disjointed. It does seem like you haven't actually had an experience of that. But really having those experiences is what I feel like. This is a group who you're craving experience here as well. And maybe you always tell yourself that, like, you're going to retire one day, or you're going to, and that's going to be the time. But you don't, okay, this comes back to the brain. You don't understand the brain is what I'm hearing, because this also reminds me of, like, a guy who is like, well, I'm not in his early adulthood is like, well, I'm not really in the time of my life to settle down and have love. So what I'm going to do is be going all over the place with it. Not realizing that he's building his brain in his formative years, especially before he turns 25 and his brain actually is developed to where he has habits, and he doesn't know how to do the other thing because he doesn't understand the nature of experience, and that experience is what builds habit. And if you can't take that into account, then you're going to be putting things off, not realizing that you're fundamentally changing yourself almost in, it's not irreversible ways, but you're just making it harder and harder. You're making that wall bigger and bigger and bigger for you to then have to, like, try to, I'm hearing there's no time like the present. There's no time like the present. And if your heart's drawing you somewhere, then it's really a voice that you should listen to and take seriously. This is a group who doesn't understand the heart. I'm hearing brain and the heart. You don't understand these two things. Do you know that there are neurons? There are neurological cells in your heart. Neurons. Neurological cells in the heart. That suggests there's brain activity. But you know what? Spirituality has told us that forever. You have the three brains, the gut, the heart, and the brain. And that, again, it's like that young man kind of mentality of, like, you really want to be operating above your gut, above your lower area as a brain. You want to get that up to the heart. You want to get that up to the brain, but it has to go through the heart before it goes to the brain. Like, allow it to come up the way that it needs to. So trust your instincts, trust, like, what your instincts are telling you. Make sure it's in alignment with your heart. Make sure you're looking for a consensus. And I think some of you, it's like you use the brain to override the heart, to override the gut. And that's why things don't work out for you. That was plain and simple. Your shadow, that's what your shadow has to tell you. That's what your shadow has to teach you. And I'm hearing you're cutting me off at the knees. That's how you disconnect from your power. You think that over relying on the logical mind is power, and your gut and your shadow, I think your shadow lives in your gut. So some of you are having gut issues, and, like, where your stomach just feels not great, or if you don't eat foods you like sometimes too, is what I'm hearing. Like, maybe you could be one of those people that's so logical that you never eat. Or because you're always, like, head in a book, head in the clouds kind of thing, head in your brain. Or, like, you could just only eat for, like, as a machine. And it's like, you kind of, like, don't forget to enjoy life. That's what your shadow has to say. Don't forget to enjoy it, baby. That's why we do everything. That's why you have a job. That's why you do all the, you go to school and you make sure you can, be responsible. It's so you can enjoy it. But it's like, I'm hearing it's a way you shut yourself down. And it's also a way you shut down relationships, is by being overly logical. Because you just feel safer there. And again, you're not bad for any of these things, but it's like, just try to experience these other things. But allow, and I'm hearing it's going to give you a different perspective. It'll give you an entirely different perspective. And also, you need to get away from these circles that reinforce this. There's a peer pressure that reinforces your belief systems, because it's like an echo chamber. And we all do this, like, but yeah, it's like being in an echo chamber. But I'm hearing, like, traveling, like, I'm literally seeing this as being a plane. So I think some of you, it's like your heart is calling you somewhere to take a trip somewhere. And again, they're telling you not to be stupid, like, make sure that you're in a well-lit area, and that the hotel you're checking into is reputable, and, do that, like, before you go on your trip. But then when you're there, like, have some fun, kind of a thing. So, all right, let me just see anything else. Also, I just heard this might have to do with your car. Like, maybe you didn't get the car you wanted or something, but you could have afforded it and you could have done it, but you felt like it was frivolous, or I don't know. There's something here to do with a car as well. And music. Some of you actually are good at writing music. It's something like it's a nice bridge, I'm hearing. You write a nice bridge. You're good at writing bridges. I don't know. Bridge, music, records. Like, I'm seeing this as a record player. But I think that opportunity in music. Like, have you ever seen like I don't, a lot of you guys probably already know who he is, but that DJ Sickick, I know he's like a phenomenon, but I only just like came across him, and like when you see all the buttons and like the stuff that he has in front of him, and like the way that he's able to kind of just like play around with mixing up sounds and stuff. So I feel like some of you are called to mix sounds, because it's like these songs that other people have written, but then you can put them together in a creative way. It's like a perfect on-ramp or something where you can be free-flowing but then also be technical at the same time, or just listening to music and appreciating the artistry of it. Here, I think reading about artists or like listening about artists' lives and things like that. Also, they're saying there's something that you'll realize about artists where there's something like, it starts off like just following a free form, but then a lot of artists do have like their patterns or their idiosyncrasies or their ways that they sort of like on-ramp to their own creativity. And it kind of like, it's like a give and take, and they want you to practice that. So let me just see here. What else? Okay, the sun vitality. I feel like this is going to, there's a cycle. You know how like everything in life is cycles, okay? And Gestalt forms of psychology really harp on this, that nothing exists in a vacuum. And I mean that on a lot of levels. But what I'm talking about here now is like the Gestalt cycle. I don't know if you can find it online, because it can be an area that it's hard to find things that are reputable and that are good. But there's like the Gestalt cycle, and I think you'll be able to look it up, where it's like, okay, you receive some kind of a stimulus and then your brain kind of thinks about it, and then, you know, it's this whole cycle that unfolds. So a lot of times when we're in these negative cycles, like it gets reinforced. All of our cycles get reinforced, right? By being around a group of people who thinks very similarly to you, or things where you just kind of, you get in a rut. And you can have things that don't really serve you like that, but you can also have positive things like that. And I feel like that's what they're trying to get you going on. And your positive cycle, I think, is like, it has to do with sun things. So like being out in the sun, maybe you want to go to a place. I'm literally picturing like a place where people wear colors, like vibrant colors, that has a lot of sunshine. I think that that's kind of the place that you're drawn to. I just heard snowbird. So like go in the middle of winter, like maybe you're being encouraged to plan a trip for wintertime, somewhere that you've always wanted to go. And even if you wanted to like, I'm hearing express yourself. So like go dancing, or again, make sure that you're safe, because you're not wrong in that. But like, yeah, like expressing yourself, or maybe you do like the sun rolls over philosophy. So maybe there's like a certain kind of philosophical study thing that's going on in a place like that. And, you know, you can go there. But that it's like the sun and health and body and philosophy. These are things that contribute to, they're all entry points and reinforce a healthy cycle. So the more of those you can get in one area, you're going to actually find a very healthy cycle that you just naturally kind of get into, a natural rhythm. And I'm hearing you might want to actually make that just a natural part of your life. So again, I don't know, snowbird, where it's like, if you go to a specific place that you know and you like and you feel safe, because feeling safe helps you to put your guard down. So it's like, if you just take the same trip potentially, like to the same place every year, but it's like you trust the area and you can like dance and you have your places to go or something like that, that I think would be really good for this group. I just feel like there's a place that you want to go. And it's all centered around sun stuff. And I'm also hearing where you can be the center of your own life, because this group, you have not been the center of your own life. Responsible people have to take care of others. So you probably have a lot on your plate. You have to manage other people and other people's idiosyncrasies. And I think it would truly shock you how much time you spend thinking about other people and what other people need and how other people operate instead of you. Yeah, I'm hearing like it's weird, because it's like a focus. It's like an entire focus on other people. But from like this logical systems kind of way. And I think it's like really shocking how little you really do think about yourself. And I think that'll become apparent when you are out and about and like in these other areas. I'm literally picturing like tie-dye and hippie and scarves and things like that. Ding, ding, ding. Nice. Okay. So let's see, what else? You definitely have guides over you at this time. And the way that your guides try to speak to you is through happiness. So you really do, even if it's something simple, like if you really, say you've been, you know, like that focus zone, you've really been in the focus zone. And then you're like, oh, I could have a seltzer. And like, it just makes you feel happy. And you go and you get a seltzer and you're like, oh my gosh, life is a little bit better now. You know, like something like that. It's little things like that. They just want to warm you to your own heart space. Feelings help. Yeah. Okay. Nikki just said feeling safe helps you put your guard down. And there's a place you want to go. Like, okay, I just lost it. Feeling safe. Oh, okay. I know what this pile does. That's why you're responsible, is because you always wanted to feel safe when you were a kid. And feeling safe for you was like being in a routine. I feel like you could have been neglected. This is a group that could have been neglected, or things were just like off kilter in the home environment. So then you overcompensated, and that's how you give love. That's how you give love, because it was never done for you. You were never thought of. You think about other people all the time and what they would need, because you equate that with love, because all you wanted was for somebody to do that to you. Is to think about what you needed, to think that you needed breakfast, to think that you needed somebody to make sure you got your homework done and that you were in bed at a decent time, and to be responsible. And when your practice was over at 4, to show up at 4 and not 5, or like something like that. It's like that to you is love. I think that you're one of the people, and society weirdly like praises this, I feel like, especially in women, but it's like you have a low threshold for happiness. Like when people just do what they should be doing, I think that you are just eternally grateful. And don't get me wrong, like that is beautiful, and you have a very beautiful heart, but that is much different. That might keep you in negative relationships. I'm hearing codependent relationships where you feel like you're more of a parent to somebody that you have to take care of, because again, that's how you give love. You're not focused on how you can receive love, because I think tapping into these creative spaces and being around like a creative, artsy type of a person is actually how you receive love. There's something you're not accounting for in that space. I think you look it's like you never wanted to be like your parent. You never wanted to be selfish. This pile could be a little bit more selfish, is definitely what I'm getting. You never wanted to be that way. And so you just set out like, I will never, ever be that way. But I think you just get taken advantage of, to be honest. That heart gets taken advantage of, and the heart's sick of it. It has to do with giving and receiving, and people tap you for energy. And that's not love at the end of the day. So you're only looking at love as like the giving side of the equation, but you're not in danger of not giving love. You overgive. You actually need to pull back and show that love to yourself. That's what I'm getting. You want to love somebody, baby, love yourself. And make sure that you drink enough water, because if you don't drink enough water, I'll drink to that. If you don't drink enough water, it's like that, the lifebloods of the body and stuff like that, which is also why I'm picturing you like dancing near water. It's like you're moving. I'm hearing the lymphatic system, like just moving the lymphatic system and dancing, and yeah. All right. Anything else here, Spirit? I just saw the Queen of Wands in this deck, and for some reason I understand Aquarius is an air sign, but the Queen of Wands associates with Aquarius for me in this particular deck. So it's like, I kind of feel like this group, your heart is going to lead you to reside in a place that you don't reside in now. And maybe a place that you never thought that you would live in. And it could be a place where there's not a lot of like career opportunities per se, but it's like you could potentially, because you are going to do something creative and maybe something that you can do online, it's like you actually do have the freedom to live in one of those places. And it might even be like you start and you think, I'll live there for a year or two, and it'll be the time of my life, and I'm going to tear it up, and I'm going to live in the sun, and I'm going to eat seafood, and I'm gonna I'm just gonna be free for like just a year or two. And just doing that is gonna change your life forever, because it's a gnosis. It will actually end up being some kind of pivotal turning point in your life. I'm literally hearing like equatorial regions, or like I'm picturing South America for some of you. I'm really picturing like Latin cultures, where like the vibe, like the party, the music, the lights, the colors, the community, going to the market every day, like something like that, I think is where you're maybe going to end up. Yeah, I think this is a group that you will actually feel more at home and more like yourself in some kind of another culture. This could also be a group where you don't feel a connection to your culture. That's been coming out. I have a reading that I've been trying to work on, and the message is so big and I don't understand it. And that's why I haven't put out a video. I really love this for this group. Yeah. The Magician and Impulse. So you know what? I think that sexually you're attracted to a lot of people who are manipulative types or like impulsive types that have this like shadow side magician, because your shadow is crying out for you to connect with this in yourself. The Magician card for me always means that you have everything that you need inside of yourself in order to move forward, even if that is just the ability to learn on the go. And that's what your guides are really wanting you to trust, because when you outsource that to somebody else that you find exciting because they are impulsive and because they do, they're reckless. And again, I think that's how you get into the child, parent-child dynamic, because you think, I'm not that. I'm not impulsive. I'm not childlike, but it's nice to have that energy around and I want it around. So I'm going to outsource that to another person. It kind of creates this codependent dynamic. And I think you end up getting treated badly and just tapped for all of your energy and like kind of given the runaround. But you are the magician. So I think that you will be surprised tapping into the other side of yourself. If you don't believe in manifestation, which I'm sure like this group does, you will after this, because you're just going to get thing after thing after thing. But it's tapping into this side of yourself. And I'm hearing literally being in the sun and the smiling and the dancing and the movement and the happiness. That's the key that you're missing, like for this. And it's because you manifest from your heart. This group manifests, I think all of us, you manifest from your heart, and you need to tap into that space. I'm just hearing there's so much potential that is being unlocked. And I'll be here when you are ready to roll with the changes. Baby, yeah, like that's, you got to keep on rolling. Like maybe even go to a rock concert or something, or like, and I'm hearing 70s music, like 70s rock music, Flower Child, maybe get like a tie-dye robe or something. I don't know. I feel like just 70s. I'm really like getting a 70s Flower Child kind of like a vibe here, but yeah, like you are the magician and connecting, trusting your impulse. Because impulse shouldn't come from the mind, okay? So I think this is a group where it's like when you have an impulse, you just automatically ask the mind like it's your parent if it's okay. Like, well, I wanted to go over there, but like, is that fine with you? And the mind's like, I don't know. I can think of 100 things that would go wrong. And you're like, you're right. I shouldn't go. And then you're like, oh no, fuck it, I'm going. But like by then the moment is gone because you've run it through the logical mind. That's not an appropriate way to engage with impulse. It's also not appropriate to engage with impulse from the lowers, because that's how, you get yourself in trouble in other ways. Like you contract an illness or have a child, like impulse is supposed to come from the heart. And I think this is a group where you have the problem where it comes from your head and you overcorrect by getting with someone who lives impulse from their lower nethers. And actually Spirit is saying impulse, true impulse, healthy impulse, spiritual impulse comes from the heart. And that's an impulse you can trust. So you're getting it all confused because you're like, well, I don't want to be impulsive the way they're impulsive. I could never be that free. And what you mean by free is reckless. When you're seeing it, you're and your shadow's like, I'm not reckless. Like, I'm not reckless. Like, this is an impulse that comes from the heart. And you need rest. You need rest and to dream. So anything else here, Spirit? Listening to ABBA recently. Yeah. Whatever moves your body and heart and soul. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, this came out in another reading again that I have not put up yet because it's big. But they're saying where you can't trust the heart, you'll notice that movement is magical. That you can trust movement. Okay, here we go. That's why they want you dancing and stuff. Walking, anything to do with movement, because you'll notice that you're more intuitive when you're moving. You might notice that you have your best ideas when you're walking or when you're dancing, or something just strikes you in movement. And this is like a wild message. Like, it's one of the crazier messages I've gotten, and I'm not going to get too much into it. Like, this is part of why I've been struggling getting a message out is I literally like started channeling some kind of old tribal witch doctor leadery type of people, but it was like a lot of them. And they were like, the blood, kept saying like the blood, we put it in the blood. Like they were tending the blood in some kind of like ritual way. And they said in our time that we can't possibly understand like the clarity and the love that they did that with. And we couldn't do it in our time because of the way that we live and what it does to the blood to live in such a high stress way where everybody's miserable. It wouldn't be possible to do what they did back then, but they put certain fail safes in place because we dip in and out of cycles. Like, this is the precession of the equinoxes and things like that. I mean, this is like kind of a known thing for humanity, and certainly to spiritually aware tribes and stuff, that we go in and out of periods of enlightenment where we know more things or where we live in ignorance. Like they always know that that's possible. So they're saying we put it in the blood, so if you can't trust your heart, or if you're disconnected from your heart, that movement is a substitute for that in order to kind of onboard you. And that's what's important for you to know. And also I'm just hearing ancestors. There's drumming, like another thing, drumming, tribal drumming, ancestral drumming might do something for you. And when you're stressful, you might actually, I'm hearing like I'm just hearing like some of you might play drums, or you might find that you actually beating on something like just has like a cathartic effect. But there's something with drums and like the tempo and like playing around with the tempo that fits right for you. When I worked at Omega, we would bless the food before people would come in. And so somebody would just start, every one of us would just like do our own little, like find our groove in the moment. And then everybody would just be like joining that, and we would do it louder and we would do it louder. And that's how we would bless the food. And then somebody at the end would just be like, we'd all put our hands over it, like not touching it, and just say like a prayer. But like we would use the tempo and the drumming, and all of us got to contribute like our own personal like little flow. So drumming and finding your own groove, not overall necessarily, but just like in every moment, is something that can really help you too, just to know what kind of mood and vibe that you're in. Beautiful. Yeah, drum circles might be like really fun for you, because like you just get lost in the sauce. Like you can be a part of it, but you also don't have to be the center of attention. It's like actually really freeing and really fun. Yeah, so 2 of trees, flexibility, Knight of Custodian trees, like just being more flexible, and see how centered he is. This group, your body is really a key, and travel I think is a key to that as well. And just being around other people who feel free in their body, knowing this is something that you need a little, I think like you've been taught to be very self-aware and like very self-conscious to the point that it's come a blockage for you. So yeah, you have such a beautiful, first of all, you're very loved by spirit, and you, like, I'm hearing, we want you free. I just heard, we want you free, child. We want you free. I just heard Alana Fairchild. I don't know why. Okay, so yeah, Page of Trees, Dreamer, and like the dove, the peace, and like the dove got sent off from the ark after like a time of the floods, you know, in order to find land. I feel like you're meant to be on a lookout for a land, like a lookout for a new place maybe to be, because you could have come off a really difficult time. But it was a time of purging is what I'm hearing as well. And maybe you did have to be very logical to navigate through that, and you shouldn't be hard on yourself about it, but it's just time now to move to a different phase of your life. And I've been getting a lot of messages of like moving from surviving to thriving. And again, the sun is in the background, and like I'm hearing follow the sun. There's this beautiful song, and it's like, you know, follow the sun. How many songs are there? It's like Chasing the Sun, Sarah Bareilles. We're all just chasing the sun. You might want to listen to that song as well. So, nice. Oh yeah. And Ravati, you know, Pisces, water, Pisces also is like elsewhere. And it also rules over spirituality and the mind. You might find that you are more intuitive. And Ravati to me is also a very communal energy. So all of those things for you, community, spirituality, being by the water, like all of those things. Anything else? And then we're going to move. Music is all in this reading. Yes. 5 of Angels, withdraw in the beginning. Okay, so I feel like right now, I'm hearing dark. I think you're coming out of a dark night of the soul, but you're about to be reborn. And so I'm hearing just take heart. Everything comes back to the heart too. Like don't lose heart. You might feel like you can't win right now, but this is just coming from the logical mind. The 5 of Angels, this is the 5 of swords. It's air energy, and it's disruptive air energy. And the mind, you have a very built up mind, you know, because I'm feeling like, but it's almost like the mind has become a bully to other parts of your self, of your person. And that's what's making you sad. And I think you're around people who are codependent on you, and that therefore reinforce this in you. They expect you to be the responsible one. They expect you to be logical. And I also think that these people might think that they're joking with you or something, when it's like you finally find the courage to step out of it and to be a different way. And everybody's like, draws a lot of attention to it, but they think that they're like playing with you, and it's like, oh, pile number 1 wants to wearing tie-dye today. Like that's, oh, okay. Like, and it just, again, you're very self-conscious because there's a lot of mental energy here. So they just feed your self-consciousness, and they're really not, I'm hearing they're karmics, and you need to be around soulmates. That just, it's an easy flow here between you. And look at this. I don't know what I can show on YouTube, but it's like, look at the energy of this. So beautiful. So beautiful. So yeah, that's what I have for you guys, pile number 1. And I just feel like I keep wanting to get into this more and more, which I think is how you're going to feel like whenever you do tap into this. It's going to feel so good that it's like you just want to do more, and you want to be more, and you want to keep getting into it. Also, I think you're going to find yourself wearing colors that you, in your culture, you were told like that you can't wear, or I don't know, maybe that color doesn't look good on you, so you're not allowed to wear it. But then I know this has been a big part of my journey, because I was like kind of taught how to be a lady by my grandma. She was like very felt it was important for me to learn how to be that, and I appreciate it, because she was not doing that in malice. She was doing that to take care of me, but her way of being a lady and my way of being a lady is just not exactly the same thing. She didn't know how to help me on board to my own womanhood or like my own ladiness. So she was like, she always wore slacks. She would press her slacks. She's a Sagittarius, so she's raucous, but she would like press her slacks, you know, like everything was beige, everything in their house was beige. And like, she would take me out to these like furniture shops, and she would be like, you know, well, what do you like? And I never really saw what I liked there. So, but I was like, I must just not like furniture shopping, but I do, you know, I just hadn't been around places until I started being in cultures where it actually is considered nice and elevated to wear colors and to lighten up, you know, like that's why I'm so drawn to like Indian culture, Mexican culture, certain African cultures where they look very nice and they use colors. It doesn't have to equate to only wearing beige or black or gray. And that's just like a weird thing that like, I know it sounds so stupid, but like I didn't know that I could do that and still be considered that I looked nice. And then I think that's also reinforced, like, for those of us who have had to work jobs where there is like a dress code, because the dress code usually has to do with like, you can only wear grays and beiges and white and black and like that very neutral palette because it's non-offensive and everybody typically has those things and, you know, feels pretty comfortable in that. But it's like whenever you go for just like the average middle all the time and you can't ever just like express yourself in like in an extreme way that's not necessarily bad, then life loses all of its color and it loses all of its meaning. And I don't know, that just seems like a small thing to me, but it's like it really, color and like expression has really helped me come alive. Like it was, anyways, I don't know, maybe I think that you'll wear colors that you didn't feel like you were allowed to wear in the past. So, okay, that was pile number 1. What did I do with the, okay, pile number 2. Okay, I'm just going to take a little water. I'm going to take a hint from like the pile number 1 group. Black absorbs energy around you. I'll say that as well. And I know like engage with this in the way that you feel. I, for a while was, I did Kundalini yoga. It was probably the lowest point in my entire life. I really do not jive with that culture, like a lot. And this is just like speaking from my own, thing. And that's where I learned that like everybody should wear white, and, white is associated with like the masculine paths of spirituality. And I've always, liked wearing black, and I felt like I couldn't wear black. And when I kind of busted out of like that paradigm that was honestly very not good for me. Now that can be a good path for other people. Although I'm hesitant to say that, and I don't know why I'm saying this. I did study religion academically. There were 2 groups they went in on, and they were absolutely no. Because religious studies professors, I've always admired this. They hold the space of like, we just do not go in on them. But it was Kundalini and it was the prosperity Christian gospels. And they were 2 sides of the same coin, where one was more regimented and the other one was more because of the prosperity gospel elements where that kind of like devoided them from things, and it caused like actual criminal like activities and things. And I'm not trying to tell you what to believe, but I'm just trying to, I don't know why I'm saying this, to be honest, but like that was another thing for me where it was like, I don't like people telling me what I can wear. It's like really offensive to me. Anyways, and I know you weren't trying to do that. But again, it's like, yeah, and I just don't like see, and that resonates with you, and that's super cool. Spirit, for those of you who are watching this later, Spirit Child is just saying that that the color white is the most pure, and I just don't resonate with things like that. But it's fine that you do, and that's the point of the message in pile number 1, is to tap into you and like your own specific orientation. And if it makes you feel good to wear white, then go ahead and wear white. But see, I come from like working class background, and like I'm wearing white right now too, like how funny. But like I kind of find things of like wearing white or having like long nails, and those became like, let me just stop talking. It just doesn't matter. A lot of times fashion comes from like the upper classes because it signals that they don't have to work and that they don't have to get dirty. And a big part of my identity, maybe this is going into pile number 2, big part of my identity is like, girl, get in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's all I want to wear. And again, like if that's what you want to wear, that is cool. And I think the point of pile number 1 is just that we are all oriented differently, and that is what makes us all so beautiful. I just don't like systems that say that it's like for this arbitrary reason that it's like superior or that everybody should do it. That's what I don't think is healthy. Okay, so moving on from that to pile number 2. Yeah, and fashion is like so important. It's not frivolous. And these like creative like choices of personal expression, they're not frivolous. And controlling people's personal expression is a form of mind control, right? So, okay, getting in here to Pile number 2, this chronal energy. Interestingly enough, I feel like this like ties in very strongly with sexuality because I remember reading this thing that really like touched my soul, where it was saying the chronal energy is the most sexual, like because of the maiden, the mother, and the crone, like for females. Because in the maiden phase, a lot of times a female's sexuality is kind of put upon her. Just by nature of being in a female body, she is objectified. Her body is not seen as pragmatic, even though all bodies are. You live in there. You work in there. You take care of your family through your body. It's not simply sexual, but because of her maidenness and her maiden phase, a lot of people simply look at her as a sexual being, but it's almost like she runs the risk of being stripped from her sexuality or separated from it, where it like exists to appease other people. In motherhood, the sexuality, again, it has a function and it is for others. A big part of the feminine journey is having people invade your space. Like your body is like other, children especially, like are just dependent upon your body, come from your body or around your body. Like there's a lot of whereas a masculine energy, it's all about, they study this in primates, it's about keeping people out of your space. Like the more alpha you are, like people are further away. You can afford to live in places where people don't live as close to you, right? Like that's more the masculine path. So there's something here about like being tread upon. But in the chronal years, especially tying this back to sexuality and has something here to do with the body, it belongs to just you. And those expressions of sexuality and of the body belong to just you. And it's not about ornamentation, and it's not about performance, or it's not about decoration. It's just about how it feels for you, because the hermit phases of life overall, which spiritually speaking, and again, like don't take this as like a hard fast number, but it's like 55 and older is traditionally, if you don't feel it setting in before then, it's like the hermitude phases of life where it's healthy to actually like withdraw in and actually start to contemplate like deeper meanings, of life, and to prepare to transition back to the other side of things. And again, it's all about like the internal. So I feel like this group, it's like your shadow very much has to do with something about the internal. And there's also something about like an internal warning system with this crow here, because crows always have one lookout that is always, there's multiple, but usually there's like one on duty that has like a responsibility to look out and provide some kind of a warning system. So I feel like there's something here about owning your own space, owning your own sexuality, owning your own body, and experiencing those things from the inside. And maybe even from a pragmatic point of view, like really taking ownership that is actually meant to connect you with some kind of like internal warning system. And so this is about a heads up, like, and about an alert with the crow here, that your shadow is actually very capable of it's very observant, it's very independent, it's very get off my lawn. I love it. It's very get off my lawn. Like, do not tread upon me. Stop touching me. You're in my space. So you might, but again, your conscious self with this group probably is like more like what I was describing for the first group, where maybe you do wear a lot of colors. Maybe you are very approachable. Maybe you are very fun. Maybe you do work with children. Like you're always having people up in your space, but your shadow is more like, just take a step back, And I think maybe even when because of how your personality is oriented, I think I think you're a very people-oriented person. I think you're probably very socially, emotionally intelligent, and you kind of know that if you switch up, like, your attitude, that people are going to be like, whoa, like, and that it's going to be jarring for people, and that it will have that effect. So I think that you do a lot, even when you're trying to hold a boundary or something, you're like, please back up, like, please back up, move. Like, I'm laughing because I feel like this is me sometimes, where I'm like, and because I don't know, it's like, and Alex has really helped me see this and understand this about me as a person. Like whenever I get upset, I always try to kind of be like very logical about it. Like I try to strip myself of all like emotion and just very calmly present like, I'm feeling bothered by this, that, and the other thing. And I'll give like a PowerPoint presentation. Not really, but that's like kind of my approach, because I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do, because I just feel like, again, because women are crazy, right? And emotions are crazy. So I've never wanted to come off like that. And I've always wanted to be taken seriously. So I've translated that in my own brain to like, well, I just have to be like very, all the times I'll be like, I'm feeling X, Y, and Z because of bullet point A and bullet point B and bullet point C. And Alex will be like, yeah, cool. And he listens, but then like, it's not hard and fast, because he doesn't understand that like, by the time I've brought it up, I'm like really needing a lot of help or a lot of assistance. And he sat me down one time and was like, I love you and I want to make sure that your needs are met. But I don't think you realize how confusing it is for me when your emotions don't actually match what you're saying, because I don't actually get the message that you're in like dire need until... And he's like, because that would change the equation for me, but I'm not getting that information, and like emotions are kind of information. And he helped me really like to understand that. And I feel like this group, it's maybe something similar, but it's with these more chronal energies, and also like not being expressive. As I think that you're just expected to be expressive, or you're expected to be on all the time. But there's a part of you that is like deep and very contemplative, and just like I'm picturing a crone, like, what was it? Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. Because again, you're very socially intelligent, and I think, you know, if you were Atticus Finch, like some of you might well be introverted and you might like to be a homebody and, you know, just have people leave you alone, because I think that you're just so approachable that if people have a need, they really don't feel... They don't put themselves through the same filtration process. I don't think you quite understand this. They don't put themselves through the same filtration process that they would do with somebody else who has more of this like stalwart appearance, where it's like maybe they're not, where they have more of an appearance where they're not super friendly all the time. They don't always have a smile on their face. Not because they're mean, but just because they do have boundaries, and they do expect other people to put themselves through that filtration process of like, maybe now's... I think you don't realize how much people don't think that they need to think about you. And they're not trying to be mean in doing this, but it's like they just sort of think that you're always loving, you're always friendly. So it's always welcomed to approach you. And of course, like, again, if you just pull back and you think it's about that, it's like, it's not always appropriate to like just approach anybody or to ask everybody for things. But I think, it's like there is some kind of... You just have the type of presentation that people always feel like they can just ask you for things where they wouldn't. And it's not even necessarily... So yeah, I think you can feel tread upon just because people are just always at you. And you may have a certain type of person that is actually surrounded by you. Somebody who is kind of very needy, does need a lot of love, does need a lot of attention, but then they want to cling on to your energy, where they really should be getting that from a community, you know, from a myriad of sources. But then they almost get like very dependent on your energy because it's easy to get it from you. It's like I have a bird feeder out in my yard, and like the birds and the squirrels too, they like to come try to get the seed there because, you know, it's easy for them. And that's, you know, why I have it there. But it's also like not their only source of food. You know, it shouldn't be their only source of food, even though it's like something that's easy to get. So ours actually kind of is a little bit close to a pond. So it does make it a little bit harder. And I think that's just healthy for them, you know, because they shouldn't, in my opinion, they shouldn't be like entirely dependent on that just because it's like an easier thing to do. So I think you can kind of have those kind of dynamics in relationships where your shadow is trying to protect you and make sure that you have time to clear out your energy. That's a big one, because I think similar to pound number one, you're always thinking about other people, but it's in like a social way and people are always expecting you to be on. I'm hearing entertainers. So some of you might always feel like you have to entertain people. And I'm also hearing that's not real love. So I think some of you crave a love that is like deeper than time. And I think that you might crave like a very Hades type man, like somebody who has that stalwart appearance, who is a little bit more not approachable, because then you can stand by him and people won't approach him. And so then you actually notice that you have a lot more peace in your life, you know, and it doesn't have to be a man, like if you're into women, but you know, it's like, you know, they still have that kind of like F off, like on their forehead kind of a thing. And I think you want that. So this is there's a theme that's kind of building here of wanting to outsource certain things because you don't feel like it's a part of your identity. And I think this group is very concerned with this is a problem with society, and you have to let it be a problem with society where it's not a problem with you. Okay, so it's like you feel if you're not bubbly or if you're not nice or if you're not approachable or if you're not a yes person or a doormat or a people pleaser and this can be on a gradient, right? Like some of you do this more extreme than others, but this energy signature is there. You feel like people are going to think that you're not a nice person and that you're not a good person and that you're not a socially oriented person. But the type of people who are going to say that about you are the type of people who are potentially abusers, who are mooches, who just want to get what they want to get out of you. Their definition of love is out of balance. Their definition of love is they want to control that word nice because it keeps you running around like a chicken with your head cut off trying to please them. It gives them a sense of power. So I think this is a group that you have butted up against a lot of people who are power hungry maniacs. That's the way it's coming through. Power hungry maniacs. And it's actually perfectly fine and well adjusted and normal and healthy for you to have boundaries And for you to say, I think these are also the type of people, okay, you have a particular type of enemy that's like kind of around you. And they would like for you, and they would like for other people to think that you're mean if you don't give them what they want. They want to own the definition of those words. And if you, this is a weird person who has a weird relationship with anger, where they want anger to be your anger. They want your anger to be equated with abuse, and it's not. Healthy anger usually is actually a sign that we are being mistreated, but they want to own the definition of that word. And so if you do get mad, or if you do have to raise your voice, because this would be a group where you would have to push this person very, very far in order for them to raise their voice. My sister used to say to me, Jessica, when you get mad at me, I really know I did something wrong. And that's kind of a big deal if you knew my sister. And I feel like this group has that same quality of like, if pile number 2 is mad at you, you done fucked up. There's just no other way around it. And I think you like that because I think you think it gives you a sense of power. But the thing is that then when they're mad, because you're a compassionate person, and you are trying to make sure that they feel heard and that their needs are met, like there's just an entirely different response. They try to tell you that their anger is righteous or correcting you or something like that, when in reality it's not. So you have abuser types that are around you, moocher types that are around you, and this hermit energy wants to come through. And you may even have a grandmother figure that is like a spirit guide to you, but somebody who feels empowered in that energy. They weren't concerned with their looks fading. They were happy. And I feel like this is a person whose radiance shine through, like the brightness, the brilliance, the bigness of their soul shine through when they were an elderly person. So this is somebody that you probably really connected with in their older years, I'm getting. Or there's a literal person like that around you. And I'm hearing you're supposed to see the femininity in them. You're supposed to see the lightness in them. You're supposed to see how you're healthy and well-adjusted. And so when you look at a person like that who has boundaries, they want you to see how you respond. That's fine with you and you're okay with it. And notice how when people put that unreasonable expectation on you, that it is just that. It's unreasonable and it's a red flag. Because I think this group like kind of glosses over red flags because you just want to be available to everybody. But some people, because also these people who come to you, they need to be in their own hermit energy. I think they kind of need to not, like these people don't play well with others. And a natural consequence of not playing with others is experiencing being ostracized because people don't like to be around you, which should be, again, hermit, internal reflection. It should be a moment of internal reflection. Again, if they're like not unhealthy, and that will help them. It's not hurting them, but they want you to think that it's hurting them because you have to include them regardless of how bad their behavior is. And I think you feel bad, but you're hurting people. Your spirit is saying you're tampering with our processes. So you need to develop wisdom in this to see your actions clearly, that it's not always the best thing. It's not always spiritual. It's not always nice. It actually causes quite a bit of problems for people when you're preventing them from getting in touch. You're actually preventing somebody from getting in touch with reality, but also getting in touch with themselves. And it's not something to be praised. Society wants to praise that in you so that you are a doormat and they can work you and they can get whatever they want out of you. You know, this is kind of a customer service mindset. I'm hearing people that are maladjusted want customer service people because like they want to turn everybody else into a customer service rep where the customer is always right and you just have to grin and bear it, even when like they're not being fair, because then they don't have to change their own behavior. So you have to see that clearly, this group. Your shadow wants you to see that clearly. And I think you do. I kind of feel like this group is nobody's fool. I think you actually really are very strong and very smart. It's just that your identity is like oriented around that. And this is probably like a very female group. Even if you are male, it's like you maybe were raised around women, or like you really identify with the plight of women and you don't want to be seen as big and bad and scary. Like if this is a male, this is a group who you want to watch this too. Listen up. Remember I said you're really attracted to that stalwart energy, very tough, like, you know, take no shit, like I set a hard boundary, don't approach me kind of an energy, because you're outsourcing that to yourself. But I think, again, that creates a weird codependent dynamic, and that might not actually be the best kind of a relationship for you. And I think this group might actually put down men especially, or other people. Like you actually become the persecutor. You actually, and I've had comments like this on my channel where I'm describing a certain energy and they're like, they're not a man, and ew, well, they're not this, when really they're just like healthily adjusted. And you actually, there's a weakness in you where you grow dependent on somebody else being a type of way. which makes you feel less than or like dependent on somebody else's energy instead of, again, being that magician, knowing that you have everything kind of within yourself, and empowering yourself. So I think you really want to watch putting down and ask yourself where that comes from. And also, I'm hearing this is, again, self-reflection. How can you hold a view of yourself as like, I'm just so nice and I'm just so loving, but I feel like it's okay to talk about men who are nice and who are open and put down their masculinity. Those two things don't exist. It's something, it's and I'm not trying to shame you in that, but I'm trying, like the hermit, I'm just going to be no nonsense about it. I'm going to tell you that exists there. It's a hypocrisy, and you're meant to be the hermit and kind of go within and say like, well, maybe I'm not all love and light. That's just the truth of me. I'm not all love and light. And by me trying to say that I'm all love and light, or I feel like somebody's attacking my false identity if they tell me that I'm not all love and light all the time, then I need to be more aware of that and account for the truth of myself. And, I'm remembering, I don't know why I want to share this. I'm remembering like I was describing somebody's future partner, and it was somebody who was sort of like a mama bear type. So the bear, it's like they're very tough and they're very grizzly, but they have a heart. They're a lover. And somebody was like really ragging on that person in the comments. And they were like, maybe this is my energy. And immediately my intuition, I was like, first of all, it's themselves. Like it is themselves. But they didn't even realize that they were putting their own self down. And I feel like there's something about this where it's like the qualities that you're like hate, like that you can find repulsive. It's like actually your own qualities, and you don't even realize that it's weakening you and that you're actually insulting yourself and putting your own self down. So I feel like you might not like this part of yourself, and you're mean to that part of yourself. Yeah, this is reminding me of like Venus, because Venus is inwardly corrosive but outwardly beautiful, where Mars is outwardly corrosive but inwardly beautiful. And that person that I was trying to describe was very Mars, so very masculine, very outwardly I'm tough and you can't really, I'm very skillful, I'm very this, but like inwardly I'm a caramel chew, and not everybody gets to see that side of me. That's more Mars, and women can be Mars too. But like I feel like this group is Venus, and you're not accounting to the fact that like there's an inward corrosion where you're always picking at yourself. When it's not always just. Sometimes you do need to tell other people that they have a responsibility to clean up their act, and the problem doesn't exist in you. So I think this group can be overly capitulating, and you can try to fix things in yourself that don't need fixing. Things that actually are meant, they're safeguards. And you don't really realize that by you playing this game, it's like you become an accomplice. This is Persephone. You become an accomplice to your own captivity and to your own mistreatment. And it's not cute and it's not feminine. Why do we live in a world where that kind of thing is synonymous with femininity, and psychopathy has become synonymous with masculinity? That is it's ill. That is ill. And it's not true. I feel like I'm just feeling a type of way now. I think I tapped it for some of you, where you're feeling angry. Good. That's you, baby. That was the best. If you're feeling angry, that was the best thing I could have ever done from you. Welcome to that side of yourself, because pretending it's not there doesn't help anybody. Also, I'm hearing the word bitch mother. And I was thinking about this the other day, where I was like, I don't understand why that's a bad thing. A bitch is a female dog that has like just had puppies, and she's protective. I find it so grotesque that our society wants to paint that as bad when that's a healthy version of femininity. Why is it that the masculine is the only one that's allowed to be protective? What if he's busy? What if he's tired from doing all the protective and somebody just shows up? You're just supposed to put your bonnet on and just be like, oh no, like so that somebody wants to kiss you. I'm going to fight you. Like I will tap a strength in me that I don't give a shit. You will hear sounds coming from that cave that no human has ever made before. Like I don't give a shit. When did that become wrong? When did that become bad? I feel like this group needs to question what they're told too. It's like you do, and you understand it, but then you don't want to bring it to the forefront because again, you want people to see you a certain way. And because you maybe want you're capitulating to what other people think you are instead of living your life from the inside in. Like I'm hearing, you need to know who you are. You need to know that you're feminine. You need to know that you're good, and you need to know that you're strong, and that other people don't get to decide that about you. Because when they do, they control your behavior. And what they're really doing is they're just dismantling you. This is you. Am I pretty? Do you love me? Am I feminine? Am I nice? And I'm being extreme about this because, again, I think that, like, it's happening on a gradient, and I think all of us feel, like, kind of this way when we're young, but it's okay. It's okay for you to be strong and all the things that they tell you you're not supposed to be. Yeah, and Yeah, there's a sadness here too. There's an anger and there's a sadness that this group is not tapping into. Like that your shadow side. It's sad. It's also very macabre. Macabre. And you might have a dark sense of humor. You might like dark art, like with the grays and or like an old creepy house. You like to shroud yourself. You want to live in an old creepy house as a metaphor. Because again, it's Atticus Finch, where people are like, well, I'm scared of that house, so I'm not going to tap on her door to ask if she wants the Girl Scout cookies. Because you know you'd buy the Girl Scout cookies, even if you don't want them and you're trying to cut back on your sugar and maybe you're trying to save money to go on vacation. You know you are going to buy the Girl Scout cookies because you want to be the person who buys the Girl Scout cookies. But if you're in that spooky house, then maybe nobody will come up to the door. And if you have that scary man next to you. So I think I'm kind of picturing like the Addams Family, the woman. I think that's you, baby. See how she's like spooky and she has like a twisted dark sense of humor where she's like fester, you know? But she's like very loving towards her family and her husband. And I feel like that's where your love belongs, is with the people who do treat you well and who, yes, are protective, but also like Morticia. Yeah, I would not want to cross Morticia. I wouldn't want to cross Morticia. And I think people should not want to cross you. That's what I think, file number 2. Yeah. And also, you have a power in you that you might have a power with animals. I'm hearing the word mage. But you also have an ability to, to tame the wildness in other people. You have this as a power. You can control people a little bit more than you want to admit to them. Where if you like that energy where it's like you always are trying to want to make people feel good and it's beautiful, but some people just kind of need to be held. It's like I almost want to say brought to heel, but it's not that. It's not about power. It's like they're crazed and like they just need to be like held, and you can tap that in people, and you shouldn't be afraid of that power. You're afraid of your own power. This group is afraid of their own power. I'm hearing who taught your grandmother is here. Somebody's come get your grandma. No, I'm kidding. She's great. And she's like, who taught you to fear your own power? Some of you had activist grandmas. Like they fought for causes. They fought for their rights. They fought for movements, and they are also feminine. They were like those people that they talk about that like did that was me, and I fought for my rights. So you can't do like, something like that. So, hi Grams. Let me just pull some other cards here. Yeah, I think also this group, you're more leadership oriented than you give yourself credit for, but it's more of a pulled back leadership. You lead by example. I really think this group, you have a lot of energy. Again, Morticia is not really like an accident that her energy came through because, okay, first of all, the Addams Family Credo, I'm going to put this above my door, and I think you should too. Wouldn't it be great if we all had this? Just consider it. Okay, just consider it. The Addams Family Credo is, we gladly feast on those who would subdue us. That's your mantra. We gladly feast on those who would subdue us. So eat that. Yeah, like there's something here about like teamwork, and you are meant to be a leader. And I think there's something about you too. I think this group, ironically, you're so feminine. You're just so naturally feminine that you don't need to capitulate. You don't need to perform your femininity. You don't need to perform your goodness. I think that actually women potentially see this group as a leader, and like they just like you. I feel like y'all are women's women. You're girls. And I think that if you're leaders in that, like if you just lead the way, then you give permission to other people to not have to do the whole hubbub as well. You really are that's the way you can assist. Okay, literally your guide's coming through and saying, and that's the way you can assist with may all beings be free, may all beings be liberated. That's how you can assist, is just by being yourself. Because you being yourself is you being a leader. And you not following what's expected of you in whatever way. And it's not to say just like drop it all together. It's like be your own version. Like have that come out of you. Yeah. Yeah, this group is a girl's girl, for sure. Like you, and I don't know when it would just became not allowed for women to exhibit strength. Like our own kinds of strength. Like, I just hate that so much. Yeah. Okay, and also the other thing is this is a group, no. You know exactly where you want to go. You know what you think. I feel like you're highly opinionated. And I think that when you talk about your opinions, they're like, well, I don't know. And, well, it's whatever you think. But in reality, it's like, I know exactly where to go. Hold on, let me get my GPS out. yeah, we're going to have to go like to this and that. And actually, I'm feeling this type of way and that type of way. But it's like, you don't want to signal that you're difficult or that you're bad. You don't want to get put in a category. You know what? You share that with the bulk of humanity. None of us just want to be put into a category. And you're the same. That's it. You don't want to be put in the wrong category. And I'm hearing, and that's just what we can all do for each other, is just stop putting people in these categories because just because they do like one little thing. I just watched this video today where this man was taking her on a nice date to the Cheesecake Factory. Okay. And he wanted to take her to a nicer restaurant. They had reservations, but she took an hour to get ready. And so they missed their reservations and he had to come up with a different thing on the fly. Anyways, she was like, got out on her phone and she was making this TikTok where she was just like berating him for having the nerve to take somebody like her to the Cheesecake Factory. And, she didn't want to get put into a category because she didn't want to be like seen as the type of person who goes to the Cheesecake Factory, which whatever kind of person that is, I am that kind of person. And he didn't want to be put into a category of somebody who didn't put a lot of time and effort into their date because he clearly liked her and he wanted her to have a good time. And he like pulled out his planner and he's like, I made plans and I made this reservation and this and that. They both didn't want to get like put into a category. And it's like, we can all just agree to stop attaching to these weird things and then shoving someone in a whole ass category over that. And behavior over time. That's what psychology teaches us. You earn the right to be able to put people into those categories. It takes at least a minimum of 6 months of a regular direct relationship with a trained therapist, somebody who is trained backwards and forwards in the mind, for them to begin to really have developed, to have gathered enough information and enough data and observed enough of a pattern in your most intimate life moments that you are supposedly sharing with them, for them to kind of say, I think that this is maybe what's going on in this direction or that direction. But why do like all of us think that like just one thing, like because you like the Cheesecake Factory, it means that your X and your Y and your Z and your D. And I think that that about people on some level and you just don't want to get put into a category that is unfair. But I'm hearing you're meant to kind of push back against that. And your rhetoric should instead be like, I don't fit into that like just very politely, like I don't fit into that category because of whatever weird thing. Like, no, I hate that. You're the emperor. This is female alpha energy to me. And, the world should see it is what I'm getting. Like, I'm thinking about like tribal cultures. They had like the spiritual leaders, like the feminine spiritual leaders. Like, I feel like this is you. Like, you were meant to sort of be like a feminine version of leadership. We have that too. Like, just as like men have their ways of sorting their in groups, so do women. Like, women like certain things and respect certain things within their own group, and we have a right to that. So that's what I have. This is a very powerful group. Very powerful. And I think that I just heard it, power by proximity. You have been taught that you can't express your power directly and that you have to express your power by proximity. And that's the highest way to express female power is through proximity, by getting with a man who is strong and tough and has that stalwart appearance, by getting in the spooky house. You like to express your power. Maybe proximity is the wrong word, but it's like through other avenues. You like to maybe decorate with it, but then be the part of it that is non-threatening. And power doesn't have to be threatening. I think the healthiest versions of power is defensive. And that, again, that's that bitch mother. Like, when did that get equated with somebody who's like crazed and emotionally out of control? It's not emotionally out of control. There's a threat present. And I think that, yeah, it's like lumping all of that, not considering the nuance of like, when is there a threat and when is there not? And also these nasty people that are around you, they don't consider their nuances of their own behavior. They're incapable of self-reflection and saying, I came at her wrong. Of course she defended herself and her young. I came at her wrong. They're incapable of doing that. And so just because they're incapable of seeing that doesn't mean that you don't have a right to defend yourself. Because I think where you meet in people an extreme lack of self-awareness, because you have an extreme self-awareness that almost leads to like, again, that inner corrosiveness where you just pick yourself to death. So I let her know. People freak out. I know. Leah, thank you so much for the $19.99. Yeah, supreme gratitude for this confirmation and reassurance that I've integrated this shadow. Okay, good. I'm so glad, because I just feel like we're on the precipice of like moving into new energy with the age of Aquarius. And I do think that's a part of it. I feel like we have a lot of assistance in integrating our shadow. And I'm so good. I'm so glad. Like, yeah. And I think like, you know, Gloria Steinem, that quote of the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. I feel like this is a group where you've had to be pushed to your limit in terms of like disrespect, or like, I just think that you've experienced a lot of disrespect in your life, but that's been a part of your journey to enlightenment, because it's almost like you had to experience that because you would accept a lot of it because of your strength, because you're not impulsive, because you are very well intentioned. So you had to realize like, no, this is actually a problem, and I do actually have to step into this other part of myself, you know. So I think that you have probably, yeah. And this does tie to your sexuality too, of like, I think you're very giving in the bedroom, and maybe very performative even with like your feminine energy, because you like to play in that space. And that's okay. That shouldn't go away. Like if you do like to play with opposite energy, and you do like to be the feminine one, and you do like to experience masculine energy like in that way, I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong, but like do consider what you want out of the situation, and don't be afraid to like just go after it, you know. And maybe don't worry about whether or not he gets there, or like, you know what I'm saying, like just only like sometimes, you know. I'm just saying that, like, that, own that chronal energy, own your own sexuality, do the things for you, like, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm just now realizing the disrespect because I wanted to see the hood until I started my spiritual awakening. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to read that if you didn't want it. Yeah. Yeah, like if you're just starting to see the disrespect, I just feel like, again, this is kind of the nature of the path that you're on with this group, because I think you just want to believe the best in other people. You know how like little children are all narcissistic because they have to be. Like our brains are oriented that way because you aren't developed enough to see that there's other perspectives, and that other, you're being observed just as much as you're observing. And so because of that, you can learn a lot. Like your brain, you can learn a lot and take things from your environment. But as you get older and older, like the healthy path is that you become less and less narcissistic. Well, part of that narcissistic thing, I think, is that we all think that other people are like us. And so there's certain people who are very like dog eat dog. And so they think and that the world is very dog eat dog. And it is to a certain degree, you know, but they think it's all that way because that's how they are on the inside. But I think there's those of us who are very sweet and who are very giving and who just want to get along with other people. And we think that everybody else is like that. And the world is like that to a certain degree. It's all like blended. It's both. And so again, if you just thinking that it's all one way, like regardless of what side you're on, you're going to run into some kind of problems because you have to like understand that not everybody's like you. That's really like the thing. And I think that you have to consider that there are people who are just out there to be selfish and who are wanting to see how much they can get out of you, or who do want to compete with you and try to like, you know, make you seem like you're something that you're not. And they can tell, I think that they can get you on a leash because you want to be seen as nice and you want to be seen as friendly, and they want to weaponize that against you. And that's not okay. So that's what I have for group 2. Yeah. I'm just kind of getting on the tail end of that I think you there's something about the archetypes, like just understanding archetypes, that's going to help you, because they're not meant to be categories. You know, they're not meant to be like boxes. Pile number 3, the box. Maybe this is like actually a message I'm getting for pile number 3. So I'll just like leave that there. And they push and they push and they push. Yeah, and that's when at some point you want to attract your soul fam. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, cool. Intuitive Vice said she just wanted to edit the comment. I just didn't want to read something that you were like, oh, I don't really want that out there. And then I'm like announcing it to the group. Okay. Thank you for saying that. I love this reading so much. Thank you for the positive energy. You know, a weird thing that happens to me, and maybe this happens to you too, is like whenever I get passionate and emboldened, because I'm actually a very passionate person, and I get riled up, like especially about things that I believe in and stuff, and I just like really feel it. And then whenever I'm done with these readings, sometimes I'll like feel bad and I'll be like, was that okay? Like I'll ask Alex, I hate this. I'm like, was that okay? And he's like, yeah, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. I just felt like I was like angry or like, and he's like, no. But it's like sometimes when I feel just like passionate and genuine and I'm not like taking this like meek little approach, then I feel bad. I feel like I've done something bad, when in reality it's not bad. Like a lot of times it is helpful, and that is uplifting, and it is like, I don't know. Maybe that's just like how you guys can feel in pile number 2 as well. For a shadow reading, this is rather sunny. Yes. Yeah, self-reflection is something that people around me don't do. That part resonated with me a lot. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. Catherine said I transmute the energies. we're all transmuting them together, which is why, it's so important to have Sangha, like spiritual community, or like, I feel like we're the chaos coven. We all come together, and chaos is the feminine energy, where masculine is like the logic energy, the order energy. So this, to me, it's just like this chaos coven, this female gathering where we all can like, I just feel like witchy is one of the feminine archetypes. And I think that we all have a little witch in us, and that we come together, and that we all help transmute things for each other. Oh, thank you, Beth. Okay, good. I had to be more secure in my fire. I'm not burning people like others are. That is so true. There's like a healthy fire, and then there's like spitting fire. Whoa, I just like saw something drop down. Oh my gosh, and it landed perfectly on my phone. I don't know what that means. Something just like gently floated down from the ceiling and landed perfectly on my phone. It was beautiful. Oh, good. So supportive, and the electric energy works so well with my aqua stellium. Yo, nice. The Chaos Coven, do we have shirts yet? Oh my gosh. Alex is really good with visuals. Like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, the thumbnails have been really good since he's been doing them. Maybe he would make us a Chaos Coven shirt. Only maybe, if he wants to. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just like having conversation, and it just feels like really good. So pile number 3, I feel like, okay, let's get into pile number 3, shall we? So I'm already like starting to get things for this. So pile number 3, I feel like your shadow is, it has to, okay, this is the box. So I think it's like boxing. And we kind of started talking about this at the tail end of pile number 2, like boxing people in, or like, okay, well, you're watching a tarot reading right now, and there's 3 piles. So we should be doing that, and yes, we do, but like, sometimes we just have conversation, or sometimes like we dip in and out of certain things. And that's just a healthy, natural part of human existence. And I think maybe this goes both ways, where you don't allow yourself enough flexibility and enough like fluidity and enough movement, but also with other people as well. This could be a group that gets like very frustrated whenever, things are not like in a box. This could actually have to do with your physical space as well, like with different types of organization. But I don't know why I want to say this too. It's like, the human brain, I think it's like every 20 minutes. It's like on a cycle, you just kind of like dip in and out. It's really hard to pay solid attention to something for longer than 20 minutes. And there's always those like little tips, like peppermint helps you focus. So like if you're studying and it's been 20 minutes, like pop a mint in your mouth and it'll like re-alive in your brain or something. Or just like literally take 5 minutes to walk away, let your brain rest, and like bring things back to it. So allowing other people that ability, that's, again, it's like feels like more of a feminine side of things. And I think it could go both ways for this group, actually, where for some of you, maybe you are very fluid, and it can be more difficult for you to get in the box and to be like, okay, we actually do have to do this now because this is the container and we were meant to do this thing. But I think for most of you, it kind of goes the opposite way of maybe like wanting things to be in a box. And that goes back to what I was saying about the archetypes, where maybe you feel like, okay, yeah, maybe your logic, okay, I think it's a logical mind thing, but it's different than pile number 1, because this one actually does feel like this is a group that's much more spiritual and much more open to things like that. But it's like your conscious self we're talking about here. But it's like the archetypes, you feel like everybody has to fit into one archetype. But I think you incorrectly maybe use the archetypes too, where you think that if somebody, okay, how do I want to put this? Like femininity, like we've been talking a lot about it, okay? So it works to connect with your own feminine side and to know that there's certain things, like femininity is more of like the being side. So it's like how you express yourself and like creativity. But it doesn't go the other way, where it's like only women can be feminine, or you see what I'm saying? Like it doesn't go both ways. And I'm kind of losing the plot here, which is like, wait, what do you mean? Like, because archetypes have certain flavors, but it's like you don't necessarily tick every single box, and everybody has their own way of kind of fitting in and dipping out of archetypes as well. So sometimes they shift and sometimes they change. So I feel like there's just maybe a rigidity here to this. But then the box is overlaid again, like on that tie-dye thing. So I think I need a little bit more help to kind of get into this pile. But okay, Chiron healing. Okay, hold on here. 6th house. Okay, this is like really talking to me here. Sextile opportunity. Okay, this has to do with like, again, letting go and going with the flow and seeing that more as an opportunity for the magic to happen. But this feels like moment to moment sort of a thing. So say you're a professor, right? Let me give you this example. Say you're a professor and you feel like when you're teaching psychology that everything you have to do has to be like a lecture, and it has to all flow, and you have to be explaining like, every single thing from like point A to point B, except for like allowing the group and the social dynamics, which is also a big part of life, to work as a part of it, and like allowing it to ebb and flow and trusting that that's like moving in the way that it needs to. Because again, maybe people are tapped out because it's been a really heady lecture and, they can't pay more attention. So you need to trust that, and actually better things will happen. And maybe the conversation will organically come about to whatever it was that you wanted to talk about just anyway. There's something here about letting go. I'm not really getting this, to be honest. It's like hard for me to put, but we do have Chiron here. So, okay. I feel like, so Chiron has to do with like our deepest wound becomes our greatest gift. And I feel like you've tried to section this off in some way. You tried to box it in. Something about like your healing has led to this organizing or boxing it in or something like that. Hold on. This is so strange because it's like I get it and then like it falls away. So Spirit, show me pile number 3's shadow. Show me pile number 3's shadow. Okay. So your shadow, so this is the opposite of your conscious self, wants to always be right, wants to defend certain things, is competitive. So you probably don't, so this has to do with success, and it has to do with hierarchy. That's what I'm getting. Your shadow wants success, wants to be taken seriously, wants to have some kind of a hierarchy. And I feel like it tries to do this through boxing certain things in by saying this is this and this should be that way, and I'm playing by the rules and everybody should be playing by the rules. I feel like this group could have like a deep resentment for people who are popular in a sense, or like gain some kind of recognition because they have social intelligence, or because they have like an energy that people like, because your shadow feels like it is always right, or that it should have the top spot because it's done everything right. That's something here like that. But but you don't feel like you can compete directly. So this comes because, I'm seeing like you're blind from it, and it does have to do with healing. So this energy of like wanting the top spot or always wanting to be right, but wanting to do, it's like, I've done all the right things. Like I've gone about it like here in this right way. I even have this a little bit. Let me give you an example of my own life, okay? And I'm not saying this so that you can attack me in the comments. I'm being vulnerable and I'm sharing my humanity. And I know this group doesn't need to hear that, but sometimes certain energies come in where, again, like I've always loved religion and spirituality, always, always, always. But it's like, that's why I've studied religion. Like I studied religion academically, and I studied psychology because I feel like I'm being responsible. And I know that there are people who fully don't understand those energies, but then go on and kind of like talk like they do. And I just don't appreciate that. I also know that it's like a very sensitive place. Think about types like Jim Jones that are very charismatic, and they run away with it, and they get drunk on their own power, and they don't ever stop to question like those things. And so I'm always kind of thinking to myself, like, no, I've put myself through certain paces because I respect the power of this so immensely that I want to always demonstrate that I'm keeping myself in check. And I can have a bit of an ego about it, to be honest with you. Like, that's not always healthy. And I try to be like open-minded and like, but at the same time, I just know that it's such a sensitive place. And I do think that it's okay to like expect that there's certain things that are regulated, but that's just one example, and I think that you might have this in like certain other areas of your life where it's like, and I've learned this through the tarot and honestly through witches and through like witchy communities, where I'm like, something that comes through people that they're tapping in with is like the authority, and like they actually know more about what they're talking about than a lot of psychologists that I've met, because not all of them are on point, to be honest. And I think it ends up in a place, because like the psych program that I was in for my master's degree, I really did not vibe with that. And one of my biggest qualms that I had with that degree program is that here all these people they're experts in psychology, and every single thing about that program was harmful to people's psychology. It's like known that master's programs, higher education programs, at least in the US, those people suffer greatly. Like the mental health takes a huge hit. And to me, it's just unacceptable for that to happen in a psychology program. And it's something that a lot of us talked about like in that group quite often. And there were people who had other types of master's degrees in psychology. And I was like, it's just strange to me that they can't demonstrate their own expertise by crafting a program that works with the human mind and not against it. So I dropped out of that program because, to be honest with you, I just did not respect. They knew it maybe logically, but they didn't actually know it in a practical experiential sense. So I think that this group kind of can be a little like stickler or a little two-dimensional. And if you're not humble about that and realizing like, oh, this is actually a blockage, that this is actually, something that I have. And another thing that I feel like is big is like, if you don't naturally shine through, like it's telling you something. Like if you're, whatever you think that you're the best at, or like that, well, I've taken the time to like study this and I've done this, but if it doesn't just like come through in your natural ability, or like, because what you're producing, those studies, like whatever it is that you feel like you built yourself up on, it should naturally show in you that you understand that and it's integrated as part of you and you know what you're talking about. And if that doesn't naturally show, then I think it's just trying to signal to you that you have more work to do, instead of getting a chip on your shoulder about it and like, well, the whole world doesn't see my value and the whole world just doesn't like, and we can all get like that, especially with places in our life that we love and that we feel are important to us and that we feel, again, are such a huge part of our identity. So this is a group where it's like, you do feel like you're top dog here, or you want that. You want that. And you want to receive like this acclamation, but then you can go about it in a way that's very rigid or very authoritarian or very dogmatic. And it's not accounting for human nature, like your own and other people's, and something like that. And it does come back to like healing. And I'm just looking at this eye and like the tear kind of coming down. So I think this is a group that maybe you have felt overlooked in the past. And it's like, that's what it's pointing to, is this wound in you where your shadow feels overlooked. That's what it is. Your shadow feels overlooked. And it's really asking you to heal and integrate that. And then I think you won't have this bitingness or like, again, this chip on your shoulder attitude that's kind of seeping in. So for some of you, I'm hearing you do have a lot of knowledge and people do notice that about you and they want to connect with you with that. But then because there's that unhealed part of yourself that just always feels like it's going to be overlooked, then I think you have these other coping mechanisms that are coming through, and you want people to accept the coping mechanisms, because then you don't have to get truly vulnerable, with yourself, I think, first and foremost, about the fact that you do actually, there's sensitive feelings under this. I think you're trying to cover this with like a pragmatism or a professionalism or a sense of rightness, but that it's actually, you feel it's kid stuff. It's like, you feel overlooked. This is also a group that could have dedicated themselves so greatly to the study of something in order to be able to speak with authority or integrity on something. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's like, what's driving that behavior? Peel it back. What's driving that behavior? And what's driving this behavior is a sense of hurt. And I'm hearing hurt people. So maybe you can lash out. And if you focus on the wrongness of the other person, you're not focusing on the hurtness of you. And I'm hearing, for those of you, I'm hearing leaders lead in this. This is a part of what's being a leader, is you ever heard the teacher's the first student? So you demonstrate, and also like a big thing in spirituality is beginner's mind. No matter, and then this is kind of maybe irrelevant, but like, this is one thing that I think I'm worried about. Like, I've just started having like this worry about, like, for me, because I have a lot of knowledge, okay? But in spirituality, like, this really, really highlighted, I have a lot of, it equates to a parlor trick. This knowledge that I have, and I study spirituality and religion and other cultures and things because I love it. It's just because I love it. But that's not the same thing as enlightenment. That's not the same thing as being spiritually advanced. Please know that, okay? Somebody like Eckhart Tolle, somebody like Ramana Maharshi, these are people who can do this. I can just study it. I'm just the finger pointing to the moon. But please don't fall in love with the finger and then never look at the moon, because that's what it's all about. So I can describe some of these things, but then sometimes like I get certain comments where I think people just want to be seen. Again, like with this would be this group. Like, I think we love watching people who are in love with what they're talking about. And that's me and spirituality and psychology and like all these things. And I think that we want that for ourselves. We want like the things that we love to be noticed. But then when we see somebody else demonstrating it, it's like, I want to be like that. And, so I'm going to study anthropology too, because, I love the way that Professor so-and-so like that, he's so alive and he's so kinetic, but you've sat through 1,000 other anthropology classes and you've never once fallen in love with it. What you're seeing is somebody who's come alive with their passion and with their dharma, and it's different for everybody. And the route for yourself is to connect with what you love. You are what you love. And so connecting with that and that is what drives someone to become an expert in something in a well-rounded, healthy way, because you're just fervent about it. But I like spirituality and I like cultures. That's not the same thing as being enlightened. I have moments, like Adyashanti describes, like there are people who are like enlightened, okay? And that they just exist in that state. And there's other, like some people have experiences. I have that where I've had experiences, but I need help with that being induced, be like a guided meditation or a spiritual teacher who can help me get out of my own logical way. But a lot of times my logical mind, what you're seeing and what a lot of people praise in me, is my obstacle to awareness. So that's the same thing with this group. Whatever it is that it's like, maybe you do gain recognition or accolades or people praise you for that, but it's like actually your obstacle. Whatever it is, it's your obstacle that like needs to get removed. But it has to do with this Chiron. It has to do with like your own healing. I hope this makes sense. That gains enlightenment looking, yeah. And the other thing is falsely equating two things, because okay, take enlightenment for instance. A lot of people, especially in the West, their only experience with it's not true though, but like their only quote unquote experience with enlightenment is with a spiritual teacher. But a spiritual teacher and an enlightened person are not always synonyms. Like you don't have to be a spiritual teacher in order to be enlightened. It's just that people know that spiritual teachers are enlightened, and there's a lot of fake ones. There's a lot of charlatans. Adyashanti for me is a good example of this. This is somehow relevant to this pile. It's hard for me to like get at this. Okay, Adyashanti for me is a good example. I was just saying this to Alex the other day. This is why I respect him so much, because his journey to enlightenment, this man was at the temple every single day. Morning, noon, and night. You know how some people go to the gym 3 times a day? Adyashanti prayed 3 times a day. He had a spiritual teacher. He tried as much as he could to like pull back from the world. He was not careerist. He wanted to take these monastic vows, but he was also a real one, because so many people that lived the path that he was living and were learning the spiritual concepts that he was learning would have thought that they were enlightened because that they were doing that. They would have started an Instagram. They would have tried to position themselves as a spiritual teacher, and he never did. And not then. He always felt the lack of it. He wanted that until he had his experience where he was like in the tent in the backyard. That's so prescient for me that he was in the tent in the backyard. I'm pretty sure of like the temple and of the worship space. He wasn't in the temple. And it all just kind of like clicked for him. And then he entered a state that he never left. And that's when he started to teach. And he did it from a place of love, because he knew that that's what he wanted more than anything. Moksha, liberation, enlightenment. He was literally living a life where he was not trying to pursue anything else even a little bit. And they do that at monasteries where they'll try to say like, well, could you just go out and have sex and be happy? And if you can, then they send you on your way. They will try to turn you away, because just like Ramana says, you can't enter the monastery before you're ready. It's just a waste of a life. You're actually avoiding doing the spiritual work. But you have to have that like lens of wisdom to see that. So because Adyashanti didn't do that, and then he wrote books and stuff that were just the truth, and his writing style is very pragmatic, and it's no frills, and it's not self-aggrandizing, and he's not afraid to call people out. He's like, I meet a lot of people say that they're enlightened, and they're not. They're very clearly not. He's like, I don't doubt that they had some kind of an experience, but how they say like, if you meet Buddha on the road, kill him, because it's a distraction, it's an obstacle. But they get obsessed with having certain mystical experiences, and mystical experiences are not enlightenment, not even close. It's just ego. It's just ego shit. I did this fancy thing. I can do this fancy thing. That's all it is. It's bragging. Not always. Because a lot of times people do have a genuine skill. It's also city powers. There's a lot of sages that like refuse to get distracted with city powers, because as you like progress in spirituality, you have a different worldview and it unlocks these city powers. Well, people become obsessed with that. It's kind of why I like to shy away from readings that are like, what are your mystical powers? Because I'm trying not to be about that. Like, I'm on my own path too. I'm not perfect in that, but it's like, I don't want you to think that's the purpose, And I sort of like playing with people a little bit who are like, why can't we do spiritual readings? And I'm like, the very fact that you don't understand that every single thing that we do is spiritual. That's your lesson. And I'm not moving. You move. So, that's why I'm saying like everything in life is relationship. So, and you have to, How can you not come to my readings and hear that there's something going on here? Like, that's for you. That's for you to remove the obstacle from your own eyes. That's what this pile doesn't understand. They want to stick in their obstinance so much. Well, or it's the exact opposite, where it's like you need to, your shadow, this is a shadow that, it's not, to integrate this shadow doesn't work the same as the other two. Where it's like, there's something here that needs to be seen clearly and then it will dissipate. That's something here about this shadow. This is more of like, especially when it's not seen for what it is. It's like a haughtiness. It's like a proudness that, this is also like, again, like when we're new on the spiritual path, that's why, it's so hard to talk about this stuff. Like, I can only relate to this through spirituality, but keep in mind, this is like the same for any other field. Cause this is like my own lens through that. When we first get on the spiritual path, the ego just rolls itself over into these new spiritual concepts. This is why a lot of times you meditate for 10 years at the monastery. You're not given access to esoteric concepts and ideas because they just become weapons in the hands of somebody who has not first addressed their own mind, their own ego. People can become enlightened and not know anything about any religion or any concept. They couldn't tell you what moksha means. But they're more enlightened than me, who can tell you what moksha means, and that it's a part, and what artha means and kama means. It's not the same thing. There's actually a lot of people who are enlightened in the world and just don't even know. It's not a thing to them. Chop wood, carry water. It hasn't become a central tenet of their identity, right? They've actually managed to get around. This is the group where they were telling to meditate at the beginning, and it makes sense that they were telling you to meditate because your group wasn't until pile 3. So you had time to do it. And they're saying, this is how you know it's true. We're having trouble getting around like some sort of like an identity structure, and it's so rigid. So like spirituality is meant to be this, like in the background. Ignore the box, the backs. It's meant to be free. It's moving, it's alive. But it's like your mind wants to make it into like a rigid goal to like be attained or something like that. And I feel like, allow me to make amends if I have contributed to that, because I'm very logical. So for those of you who think that I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm not, because it's like, I'm not, you shouldn't mimic me. You should mimic Ramana. You should mimic Adyashanti. I can try to help you understand certain things, that finger pointing to the moon, like what they're saying, what they're trying to like get across. But I don't know what I'm doing in that regard. I'm not a spiritual teacher. I'm something different. I'm like a mediator. That's what I am. But you've got to see people like me clearly. Yeah, I'm seeing Dr. Strange here. How he went from surgeon to sage. Yeah, and his mind and what he thought was his identity, his hands. That's a perfect example. What he thought his hands was his identity. That he thought that's what his strength was. What people valued him for, And when his hands were out of commission, then what did he have left over? Yeah. And look, we've got the 6 of Wands and the anxiety card, and this is going to be a painful ending. But it is on your spiritual path. Like, this is a killing of like the identity, because it's keeping you stripped. It's keeping you separate. Like, we have this identity, but then you have this wanting to be spiritual or wanting to be free or wanting to be in the flow. I also think that this could potentially, especially be linked to like one of the other piles, especially pile number 1. Because it's like, for this group, it's like you have to address this first, or like simultaneously or something, like in order to fully be able to release on this. And it's because you want to be seen a certain way, and we all do. And I think that we actually just want a baseline of respect, but because our society does not give regular people a baseline of respect, we all think we have to be something special. And I think it's incredibly toxic, and that it just feeds negative things in us. So many of us don't actually want that. I just want to be left alone, and I want to be seen as worthy and valuable and treated with respect. But society just won't let me do that if I don't know, like be a farmer. Like, I don't know. It's like something like that. And so it's like you're fighting to hold on to some kind of like identity, because again, it's kind of similar to the second group, because you want to be seen a certain way, you want to be treated a certain way, and that way is as you are. But again, this is like a society problem, where society just thinks that it can tell you what you are and you're not, and then it's like a bullying tactic or something. So it's like just it's coming from this hurt place of like identity, and it's gonna hurt, but then new growth will happen, and it will clear the air, and this functioning dysfunction will go away, and you'll start to actually move away from the problems in your life, because you're thinking you have to like manufacture something here. You're thinking, well, I'm this, so it looks like going through this, but you really just need to let go and trust the process and not worry about like if you're seen that way, you know? Like it's sort of not fair. Like I just kind of keep coming back. It's like not fair that there's like a farmer in a field somewhere that is like completely enlightened and fully realized, and somebody looks upon me as being enlightened, you know, and wants to ask me about that. When it's like, if you really want to know about it, it's like you should be asking him, you know? Like there's something not right about that. And I'm not trying to knock the work that I do because it's valuable and it's important. And like I said, I'm a mediator and I serve a role here and I'm helpful and I serve a function. But it's like I like to know my lane and I like to stay in that lane. And I don't appreciate other people like not staying in that lane. Like, you know, where, I don't know, there's certain personalities, let's say, in the world who clearly have credentialing in one field, but then want to talk about another field. Not to mention any names. Some of you probably don't know who I'm talking about, but we have a certain example in our home of somebody who does that, where it's like, no, you're licensed in this. I don't know why you're going on about this. Like, you're wrong, and you're leading people astray, and it's wholly, like, irresponsible. Surrender is so important. Yeah. So, and again, I think this is an obstacle that like you're bumping up against, and it's like you're meant to see it clearly, and you're meant to humbleness and humility. It's meant to like is necessary. You can't progress on the spiritual path without like just, I'm like picturing me going like this to you, and you just being like, oh, like you want to put it down. You do. You want to put it down. It's exhausting, you know. Hermit, coming back to the hermit, going within. Not really concerning yourself with like how other people see you or anything. We have like craft and relating here, and then Chiron. So I do think this group has a skill. Like you do have a skill, and it's not about knocking that skill, but it's like, it is this, it's not that. Like what I just did for myself. I'm this, I'm like a mediator. I know a lot of things. It's helpful, but it's also not this other thing, you know? And it's power to know that. And it's also humbleness, and it's also, and I have to be in this place if I can progress on my own journey as a human being. So this group does have a skill like with craft that is going to help you relate. And again, your deepest wound is your greatest gift. So it's like you're tapping into that. You do have a very like substantial gift to give the world. Yeah. And I think like whatever this is, it also taps your energy where it's like, you know, you really, you sense that you like have a mission, or that you do have a skill, and that it will be helpful for people, but you can't force people, you know, it's like, you can't force people to like see it. If they're not seeing it, you need to pull back and figure out what in you is why. And it's because, again, I think that there's a heartbrokenness, feeling hurt, feeling betrayed. There is karma here. There is some kind of blockage, and it has that you're learning about how to relate. You're learning about how to relate. I think this group, it's like you have a skill already. I think that you know that. You have a very solid skill. What you're learning is how to relate. You're learning lessons here in there's a way that I think you're coming at it that makes people bristle, you know, and want to fight against it. And instead, it's like just offering, just like holding out your hand and allowing them to come to you, and allowing them to soften, so that they can receive what it is that you're trying to give them. Because you do have something valuable to give to people. You do. And you know that. But it's not about making that a cause or like a crusade or something like that, you know? And just trusting that you just being earnest and like having something to offer, that's enough. And that the people who will benefit from receiving that will just naturally find their way to you. And then they'll also find their way onward, like when it's that time. Like just trusting the process of everything. Yeah. And it's leading to some kind of a new beginning. And I think also you'll have different boundaries and happiness. Like you're going to find your group, you're going to find your community when you walk away from things that are no longer working. And I do feel like this group could find themselves in a karmic group that like if you do build something up this way, like through this, like you might have to walk away from whatever that is. But it is leading you to like a new beginning. Thank you, Catherine, so much for the $50. You are just always being so generous with money. And I know like not everybody can give like that. And that a lot of you give in other ways, but Catherine is probably like you are like a patron of mine, like in the fullest sense of the word. And I just appreciate it so much. So, yeah. And I think this group's also very intuitive, and whatever skill you have, your intuition, I think there's a part in you that will soften as well. And you will find that you're actually very intuitive, like in the work that you do. And, it is helping to clear up some kind of karma here in the past. And I do think it's tied with a sexual relationship as well from your past like lives. That's an interesting thing that was like very competitive. So maybe this is a group that felt like you had to fight or compete for love. Oh, okay. Yeah. Like I think you felt like you had to fight and compete for love. There's like, and that's actually your greatest wound. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I think that love was framed like that. Whether I think it was like in the home environment, but then also with a certain person, and maybe you're trying to fight and compete for somebody's love, and your skill set is a part of that too. Oh, and I think that's your shadow is trying to tell you, and we have to end that. Is what your shadow is saying. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm Lebanese. The Crusades happened in my homeland. I gotta say, the Crusades, I was that learning about the Crusades is what broke the spell that like Christianity had on me. I was in a history of Christianity class, and I loved studying religion, like I was saying, and the Crusades, because I had already kind of been beaten down because the ends and the means are one to me, and the history of Christianity is a brutal, bloody one. And it was the Fourth Crusade that did it for me. And I was like, I remember walking home from that class and just praying to God and being like, I don't believe anymore. And there's no use in lying to you about it because you know everything and you know my heart. And I could sit here and try to put on a performance, but I just really don't think that that's what you want from me. So I'm terrified, but I can't believe this anymore. And I'm just going to trust that like you will show up for me and that this will only be a phase if it is just a phase. I know I can't talk to anybody in my spiritual community about that. Like, help me. And that's like really what kicked off my spiritual path. But again, I had to let go. Christianity used to be my identity. Like, I think some of you could have like, I mean, and I didn't realize that. I got so much praise for being a good Christian girl that like, it was this false identity. And the people that liked that in me, again, they didn't like actually like me. They didn't actually like love me. So again, this is like a relating thing. You don't even realize this, I think. Like the way that these certain things that are your identity puts up obstacles to people really truly seeing you or really actually loving you. So if you feel like people love you for your skill or they love you because you're a good Christian girl or a good Muslim girl or whatever it is for you, it's like they're not loving you. They're loving this thing you have to be. And the second you're not that anymore, that's what I learned in my Christian community. I know there's good Christians out there that are genuine, and I know some of those people. They do exist. But it's like they stop loving you like the second. There's like maybe 2 weeks you have in like a Christian community where you're allowed to question things. And then it's like you have the plague and like people don't want to be around you anymore. And I remember I got this book, The Sins of Scripture. It's by Spong. I think he's a lovely Christian pastor. He might not be alive anymore, but he's very contentious. Elaine Pagels, amazing Christian scholar, mystical, still go to church. And I read Sins of Scripture. I have it up on my bookshelf, and because I wanted to explore that. And I said to God, I hope that you don't hate me for this, because I was still really wobbly, but I have to explore this. I have to explore why I don't believe this. I have to get to the truth. And if I come back to you, it's because I really will believe in it. That's the only way for me. And so I had already learned about different like pastors and things. So I started reading that, and I worked at a gym at that time, and I like would sit there at the front desk and I would read that. And I didn't even think that it was going to be like offensive to some people that I like had this, because to me, I can read a book and not believe everything in it. Like, I hate people like that too, where it's like, just because I'm reading something doesn't mean that I like blindly believe. Like, I'm exploring, leave me alone. And there was this man who approached me, and I know this sounds so stupid, but I could just feel coming off of him that he wanted me to be like his little wife, and he wanted us to have this story where he saved me from my own heathenness, and now we go to church together and everything. But he was like, did the whole like, I couldn't help but notice that you're reading this, and he gave me a copy of The Case for Christ. Like, I wasn't on a path where I wanted to be a pastor and like completely dedicating my life. Like, how rude. Like, he just made a lot of assumptions. So I feel like that's another thing with this pile is like, when people, like, you might make a lot of assumptions because of like this very rigid kind of a worldview. But again, all of that like prevents you from genuinely relating. He wasn't asking me questions. He gave me a full-blown sermon like on that had baked into it all these assumptions about me that just were not true. And if he was genuinely Christian and if he was genuinely concerned, then he might have wanted me to like open up and talk about what I was going through, or like, but again, I saw that time and time again in my own Christian community where it was just like nobody was meeting me on a human level, and it just was because everybody wanted to be Christian, instead of just tending to their own humanness and naturally, I think it's these labels and things, they're just something that you naturally become through like a process. It's not a label that you should stick to as a banner and an identity, because then you lie and God can see right through you, so yeah, he was evangelical, and I kept The Case for Christ in my trunk for like the longest time, just as a reminder. Like I tried to read it, I think, but I couldn't Because it was propaganda. It was just obviously propaganda. It wasn't genuine knowledge. And I was a person who studied religion at a public university because I didn't want to be brainwashed. I didn't want to go to a Christian school because I wanted to know the truth. Hit me with it, you know? And I learned a lot of interesting things too, but that like really do validate a lot of Christian materials and stuff. But anyways, now I'm getting off on a tangent. But again, that's the key for this group, because I was trying to access this message, like by trying to explain it, like, okay, I can tap in here, because that's how it usually comes through for me. I can tap in here, I can see what's trying to be explained, and then I can explain it very methodically. But this, it couldn't come through like that. A lot of this was very conversational, or it tapped into my own experience in my own life. And that's the only way I could get to the truth of this. That's the only way I could get to the message, is through humanness, not through my function here of like, okay, well, I'm reading these tarot cards and I'm trying to explain the messages coming through and I'm a mediator, and like, you know, I couldn't do it through that lens. I just had to be a person, and I just had to like, you know, kind of get into that. And then it led me to certain understandings about what was going on here. And I think this group will be surprised. And that's part of the karma that you're working out. So you will bump up against obstacles, but the key is not to get rigid back, because then this creates an opposition, and you might find yourself in arguments or heated debates. Like when I was at the height of my Christian thing, I used to go to these chat rooms anonymously and just argue, but I'd flip. So I would once, like with everything that I was learning, I would debate like Jesus is real, Christianity is real, and I would go hard at that. And then the next day I would debate like this is totally fake. And it was just like a way that I was priming my mind, you know? And I don't know why I'm telling you that, but it's like, I don't know, not taking yourself so seriously. Lacking humanity, which is an odd thing. That's also, I was thinking about that this morning with like the people who are so obsessed with like, are you being a man or are you being a woman? Like they get lost in the sauce. Like those people are very unpleasant, like a lot of times, like their rhetoric, because the people who are truly like the best people, it's like they just try to be the best human. That's what spirituality is. That's what Ramana talks about. You know, it's like how to be a good human. It's like, don't lie. You know, all these like manly things. It's like, because I'm an alpha and I get what I want. And it's like, okay, so that would lead me to believe that you can have like low behaviors, like to get what you want, because that's what your identity of being a man is. But like when you talk about being a good person, you can't argue that being a good person is put at risk if you're going to do that. So you know what I'm saying? It's like, check your archetype. Like with this group, it's also like check your archetypes against each other where they're not lining up, and really check one against like being a good person, which again is like being on a spiritual path. Like, I'm being a good Christian and I'm crusading in the comments, you know, and it's like, but really you're being a shit human, which isn't what Jesus was trying to tell you about. So it kind of like find those places where it's like you hypocrite yourself. And that's where you go reflective. That's where you go in like hermit mode and you like, you know, so, okay, foot stomping all the way there. We are not baboons on a tree. We are humans who have the gift and responsibility of self-awareness. Yes. Yes. Okay, let them find their path. Yeah, and it's like, I think sometimes people like that too. It's like they want you to fight with them, and when you're like, okay, like, that's who you are. That's where you're at right now. And I don't feel the need to evangelize to you. To me, evangelizing is a grotesque thing to do. I think everybody's relationship with spirit is like, in their heart, it's private. If I'm a part of that and you come here, because you have to come here, you can click off my videos at any time. That's important to me to have that kind of like a dynamic. I don't ever want to tread somewhere where like I'm not helpful or welcome, like, you know, but it's like, why are you inserting yourself? And like, that's the temple that Jesus was talking about. And you're just in there like stomping on things because you think that you know what's best for them. Like, trust the process. Trust the process. All right. Again, I feel like I just got like very passionate, and I also don't like talking personally about myself, but sometimes it's like helpful and necessary and it wants to come through that way in the readings, and that could be another thing. But okay. I hate when people try to put me in a box. Yes. But I'm guilty of putting people in a box. Yes. And you know, that's another big thing that Ramana says. He says, all of this is happening. And if you mistake that you're supposed to fix it in the world, because we can see that in other people, you know, usually, especially if you're healthy and well-intentioned, like you can see where somebody's coming from and they're mixed up. But that's not the purpose of it is, okay, I'm going to fix it in you. If you feel like they're reasonable and if they're open and, if they're genuinely, like if you have the type of relationship where you can engage in that in a healthy, productive way, then maybe you can try to explain it. But it's like, you're not my responsibility and I'm not yours. Like, you know, we're having this human experience together, which is teaching both of us more about anything than anything we could say to each other in certain instances. But Ramana says the key to life is understanding it's all about coming right back here. You have these experiences and you check it right back here. And as long as you're doing that, you're on your spiritual path. It's about you, baby. It's about you and you taking responsibility for you. And sometimes when we get in that fight or flight mode, we can think, I can't be myself and I can't be a good person and this, that, and the other thing, unless they stop doing that. Wrong. Maybe you do have to remove yourself, but that's what you have control over. Just remove yourself from a person who doesn't get it or who wants to bait you or who is operating from a very low vibrational way. And you have the right to make that choice. But again, that's you just bringing it right back here, baby. You bringing your own self-awareness to the table. So, yeah. And I'll try to fix you. Yo. Yeah, that is problematic. Get right with God first. Can't fix the world. I can fix me. Yeah. And it's not even all about fixing. It's just sometimes you know how you're feeling and you know that somebody makes you feel a type of way. And it's okay for you to not be around them. We're not expected to be around every person. Can you imagine? Really, we can only actually stand being around a certain number of people in our minds. So I deleted a person on Facebook this week because she's always playing the victim. And when I tried to open her mind to a different idea or way to see it, she deleted my comment. I took her off my Facebook because it's so tempting to engage with. Yeah. So I can't hang with 8 billion people. So true. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the part of the reading where we just tap in and see what overall message Spirit has for you. Okay, interesting. Spirit is saying there's a hidden truth. There is a hidden truth here. And Spirit is really wanting me, I'm hearing the word contemplate. And it's leaving it's wanting me to leave it very open-minded. And they're wanting me to get a message card. I'm hearing there's a hidden truth in these messages. Just being near you is intoxicating. So many things remind me of you. I'm afraid to contact you. Okay. I want to feel that way again. So this is definitely tying into some kind of a love relationship that you have with somebody else. So I feel like there's a certain love relationship where you can see these shadow traits very strongly here at play. I feel like somebody's thinking this way about you, though. I think that's something I'm supposed to make you aware of. I want to feel that way again. So I feel like you have history with this person. So many things remind me of you. So somebody here is being very nostalgic. This energy feels like genuine love, and it feels very sad. Just being near you is intoxicating, and they're afraid to contact you. This person would like to reach out for you. They feel like things have ended, and they feel really bad, and they feel like they're not the person that they were in the past when you were around them. This feels very calm, level-headed energy, and it just feels like they're almost resigned to you not being open to having a relationship with them, and they feel like they ruined it. But it's not self-deprecating either. It's just man, that's the energy, man. It's gonna work itself out. We're all gonna get there. The Chaos Coven. Yo. Okay, so that's actually tying into this message because Alex and I were talking about the Chaos Coven, and I was like, it's so funny to me that I'm a witch, and that because on Patreon we were talking about our candles. There's a lot of us that like to light our candles whenever we do the live streams over there, and I love to picture that we are just creating this connection, this web of magical energy when we tap in over there, and we all light our candles, and we all are there. I just love kind of thinking about that, and I was like, that all just happened so naturally that I could never have planned it. If you would have told me that I'm this witchy person and that I find it very pleasurable that we're just all connecting and creating that energy, that web of energy at a specific time every single week. And I think that's cool. I could never have planned that. Okay, I'm going to have the Chaos Coven and, we're going to have these ritualistic candles and, I could never have done that. And Alex was that's the chaos part of it is it's you all just... Alex, he was saying, okay, I don't know. He was saying to me that I'm chaotic good. So for those of you that played the Dungeons and Dragons, it's they have lawful and chaotic. And then, so it's lawful good, lawful neutral, lawful evil. And then there's chaotic good, chaotic neutral, chaotic evil. And I feel we're all chaotic good, where it's actually we have to learn to let go and trust ourselves and to trust our own chaotic energy. And it actually ends up forming an order, a coven, a group, way of being that actually comes together in this kind of ordered way, but it's like good. It feels good. And if I tried to plan it, like it wouldn't have come about this way, or if I was trying to make it happen. And I think that's the same thing with this relationship that's trying to come through. I feel like there's chaos in this relationship, but that it's chaotic good. And I feel like this person can never plan as to how things are going to come back together with you. But I feel like it just will. Like, I don't know when, and it might not be in this lifetime. Who knows? You guys know I take a very like multi-lifetime approach to certain things. But it's like, they could never plan it, because I think something would go wrong if this person tried to plan it. So if you're this person and you feel this way about another person, it's like, just know that if you tried to plan it, something would go wrong. You couldn't account for certain things, and that's just really not the way. That's why Spirit is saying contemplate this reality of things, that if you tried to plan it, things could potentially go wrong. The logical mind. So that brings me back to like pile number 1 of like, yeah, the logical mind cannot account for certain variables. It thinks that it can, and when it feels fearful, then it wants to try to plan out every little tiny little detail, but it just can't do that. And Spirit just wants you to contemplate this coven here. Like, this is like literally one of the best things in my life. I could never have planned for this if I wanted to. You know, like, it's just, we just kind of naturally do this, you know. And when we were like making the candles, I use candles. I just wanted to make something that like I could do. And then like all of it kind of came together here and to this web of like energy. And I feel like we're changing energy, like when we do that and we tap in. And I could never have understood that or planned it. There's something like that. If you try to plan it, it's weird and it like comes off. Yeah. So I don't react when people mention you. And I think this is actually a big spiritual lesson that you guys are actually teaching each other. Because I remember every detail of that day. So I feel like there's some kind of thing here where it's like this person or you, like depending on however, or maybe both, you go over every single detail of what went wrong. And that's why I fumbled the ball, or I should have said this and I didn't say that. And that's where I lost it. That's what I heard. That's where I lost it. And I would give anything to have that back. Like, I just feel that so strongly, and it's so genuine coming here. And that genuine energy is like, you don't know how, but just tending the heart space potentially could lead you to like a great place. The timing just wasn't right for us. You came closer than anyone. Yeah, I can't stop thinking about you. So this relationship, I feel like, is very divinely guided. I'm hearing divinely orchestrated. It's very divine, and it's not over. I just heard that there's a Daughtry song. It's like, it's not over. Okay. You're being blocked off from this relationship right now because your energy is in conflict. And it has to do with shadow work. This is why this is coming through here in a shadow reading. Oh my gosh, this is so wild how all of this is coming together. Like, I literally am living an example of this because when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do this week, I was like, well, I feel like we should do a love reading like on the big channel, because that's what the big channel really, people vote with their views, and it's far and away like people are exploring love connections. And Spirit's saying that's very much a part of these people's spiritual paths. This was what was planned, because these are people who understand life through the lens of relationship. So, this relationship that you're processing is tied intimately with your spiritual journey. And so I was like, well, I think I want to do a love reading. I was like, no, it's meant to be a shadow reading. But like, we did the shadow stuff so that we could kind of tie this off with the love message here at the end, because it's all relevant. Your shadow work and the integration, and I mean, this is what my channel is all about. That integration of your shadow is very relevant here into like some kind of spiritual connection. And so help me. Why do I always feel like I'm ending up talking about like twin flames and soulmates, even though I'm like very logical and I'm like, I just don't believe that? Because, I get it. It's like, you can't come at that from the logical mind. People are always talking about, okay, and again, they're like, Jessica, no, because I want to get all logical with my mind about it. People are always like, here's how to come into twin flame union. And I studied this in a book, and you got to do this, and you got to do that, and you got to plan for this, and you got to do that, and you got to la 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 la. And Spirit is like, it's this chaotic good energy of like, if the nature of twin flames is divine, and that's your spiritual person and your spiritual partner, with for a lot of you, I don't know how, whatever the fuck category you want to put this in, because I can't get my logical mind of this. I'm like, and I don't believe in twin flames, and because I think, you know, and it's like, Spirit is like, get that out of your mind. Stop with the categories or the not categories. It's not about that. If this is a divine connection, which however you want to define it, it is, then it's leading you back to yourself. It's helping you clear out your own energy, and it's chaotic good. The nature of it is chaotic good. You're not meant to plan it. You're not meant to understand. You're not meant to do XYZ, turn right at the quickie station, put a purple ribbon on your hat, jump on your left foot 3 times, and call your neighbor a hag. And if you do all of that, that's the magical key, and then it's going to come out. It doesn't work like that. Nothing about spirituality works like that. We're all on our own independent path. That's why it's the finger pointing to the moon. We all have our own things that we have to deal with and sort out. We all have our own obstacles. Everything is so unique and personal to us. So having the right intent leads you to the right places, leads you to the right understandings, clears out certain energies. And again, you can't plan for it. It just occurs because you're in alignment. And alignment is not, it has nothing to do with your logical mind. That's just what they're just being very matter of fact. It has nothing to do with your logical mind. Trying to understand these things, coming into alignment. What does that mean? What it means has nothing to do with the logical mind. And anybody who wants to sit here and tell you what it means from the Webster's Dictionary Bible, is what they said, including me, doesn't know what they're talking about. These things go beyond mind. They go beyond human understanding. They're a process. They must be done. They must be lived to be understood. And this is, it's the Blavatsky quote. I've also been really into Blavatsky lately, and maybe that's a key to this. Her story is very moving. But the thing that I just shared on my community page, the path must be lived to be understood. You have to first become the path in order to understand the path. Meaning you cannot just understand these things, spiritual things, from your logical mind. So what they're doing now, and they're saying they want you to contemplate, they are really trying to get you in touch with your heart space. So expect a lot of that is what I'm hearing. And for a lot of you, your heart is broken. It's hurt. It's busted. I'm just seeing something very bruised. So it'll hurt to get in touch with your heart space. But that's the path. You're not dying. You're not in trouble. They just want to start moving. I'm hearing you're just at this place now. You're very ripe for us to start moving you towards that heart space, moving you out more of the mind or out of the genitals, whichever side you're more in, that animalistic side or that more human side. Maybe this is the twin flame thing. One of you's in the lower nature. One of you's in this very high nature, mind nature. Moving you towards the heart space. That's the path. I just heard that's the path. Somebody's coming up from the genitals and somebody's coming down from the mind, and you're meeting in the middle because it's a heart-centered connection. This is actually a connection that is not based on superficial things. It's really not. Even if there is an attraction there, it's not. You have a heart-centered connection, and that is chaotic good. The heart is chaotic good. I just heard neutral. Chaotic good neutral. And when you think about a puppy or something that's just tumbling all over itself, but so full of love, that's the image that they're giving me of the heart chakra, and the heart is just this little puppy who just, want love, and this is the journey, and it cannot be understood with the mind. And it cannot be understood with the genitals. So this is, again, people who mistaken lust for love in the past. That needs to heal within you as well, because it's just not. And I also think, I don't know why this is relevant. If you have mistaken lust for love in the past, I also think you have a fear of commitment, because to you it is, because you're only attracted to the meat shell of the people that you are with, it is a chore to stay with them. It's a heart-centered connection is gravity. It's like gravity. That's the gravity of the, I don't know why I'm talking about twin flames. I logically don't believe, they're look at Jessica right now and how so confused she is. She's talking about twin flames and soulmates, and she doesn't logically believe in it. But I always end up talking about these divine kind of connections. So the heart, ruled over by the sun, ruled over by Leo, right? It creates its own kind of gravity, and you have to trust that gravity. And a lot of you, I can't do that. I know Alex is about the only love that I can trust in my life. And other than that, I'm going to really put up a fight. And it took quite a while for me to even trust him, because he's literally a saint. And Alex is all heart. He's just all heart. So I learned that from him. But yeah. Everyone is a soulmate. Yes, everyone is a soulmate. Okay, maybe I'm supposed to get into this. This was another part of that weird message that was coming through about the blood. It was this ancestor, but they were shifting in and out from all cultures around the world. And it was the blood, yes, the blood. So they were saying this, and maybe I'll just share this with you. Do with this. My logical mind doesn't know what the hell to do with this, okay? But they were saying it's in the blood. the blood. And they were like, Jessica's logical mind. They said, Jessica, you do not understand twin flames and soulmates because you are true. You are correct. It doesn't exist naturally. Soulmates are not a thing that exists naturally. We are all soulmates to God. They're saying we made it. It's a technology. They kept saying that in the Siri voice from Black Panther. Technology. Soulmates technology. We made it. And so like the Siri connection of like Black Panther, it's this hidden, very advanced scientifically, but like they're advanced through the means that we don't understand. They kept saying that. We were advanced, but the technologies that we use, the technologies of the light, they don't come from outside the body and then work upon the body, right? We have like, if the technologies we have exist outside of us, the iPad that I use, the phone that I use, if I have a problem, I can get like surgery or something, like some technology gets acted upon me. They say technology for them came up through the body. They were always empowering the person and they tended the blood. That's what they were saying. The blood. We made it. And they were saying that they just had this, it's easy to see. I mean, I just heard like, it's very easy to see, which is why people interfere with these kind of soulmate connections so much, because it's very easy to see when two people have that natural gravity towards each other and it's so pure and it's so innocent. So people with like a sadist streak want to get involved. You know, they like to stick it to we see that a lot with the feminine, where there's some kind of other competitor around that wants to get that guy before she does and wants to kind of like tell him his hair looks sexy pushed back. She wants to stick it to the feminine, and you can, because you see the heart is so involved there and there's just a natural gravity between these two, you know, and they're saying like people just see that. So they could see that, but back in the olden days, in ancient times where it was more, these things were more understood and they lived a different way, they would do through ritual and stuff, they did something to the blood. It's in the blood. And they were saying there's certain things that block it. And this is tied to a soulmate location that each of you feel, that you actually were like from together. And it's somebody's homeland. And I think somebody was like removed from there. And it might be like a back and forward connection between the two of you, where one of you is like literally from there, and it'll come out in the karmic reading, that part of it. But and because these soulmate locations they were resource rich, but they were like mined. And then like something was like dispersed throughout the world. So maybe in the process of that mining, something got into the blood, or there was like something in the blood, even like fertilizers for like places that produce a lot of food or something got in the blood. But for a lot of people, it was like food, or it was like sugar and alcohol that was like blocking whatever this technology was that they put in the blood. And I'm not trying to make anybody wear a tinfoil hat or anything. That's kind of why I put the reading down, and I was like, no, I'm not like listening to this. But it was like, yeah, these soulmates, like this thing that people are feeling, it was a safeguard to like wake you up in a time of like deep ignorance, where it's like you had this thing that the logical mind couldn't process and couldn't understand, and it would set you off on this journey. And then they were saying, and now you can hear us, and now we have the link to you, and now we can talk to you, and now you can receive this information. We always knew that like humanity slips in and out of these periods of the dark ages. So you're not wrong to say that we're all soulmates to each other. That is true. It's like, when you see that people love each other purely, when there's like a pureness to the love that two souls feel for each other, and they can do that, that's a superpower. And they just nudged it. They just encouraged it. They didn't try to make everybody love each other that way. You know, like that would have been some kind of like dark technology. They just encouraged it, or they like through some kinds of like rituals. And I've seen that on my channel before, where I was like, there was some sort of like pagan ritual that was like, but they were like, all of this was just done in love. And it is the energy of love that like binds this. So when you're separated from yourself, and when you are feeling agitated, that's what blocks like that knowing. But all of this is meant to lead you back to your heart. And it's meant to get your attention. Like, and again, I don't know where that came from. And I thought it was weird. So I stopped channeling it. But, yeah, these kind of connections. Well, and I just think it's people in general, but like I see it a lot in the readings that it's, a lot of times it comes through like for that feminine energy. It's like to compete with love is like the worst thing, for men or women to do. Love is not about competition. And they'll probably have to learn that the hard way too. 'Cause that's just, yeah, like it's all in the mind. So anyways, that's, what I'm getting. That was a very strange message. Nice. So yeah, there's this beautiful connection here, and you don't have to do anything. You shouldn't be trying to take action to bring this about, because to do so is to do so in ignorance. What you have to do is follow your heart energies. Just be drawn, like, I'm hearing like, just let the animal of your body love what it loves, you know? That's so wild that you said that about the blood. And I didn't realize I was given a gift to help me through the... Yeah, they're saying like that. They're saying that they love us. Like, it is the love. Like, your ancestors loved you so much. But literally, like, when I was channeling that message, I saw like these like medicine women and these like witch doctors from like all cultures. They all started stepping forward, and they were just like, this is how we fight. And they were saying like, these two people also, I feel like one is a warrior and the physical, like, I think actually has taken blood oaths to like protect a certain place in the world. That's like a soulmate connection for them. Literally like a blood oath or something to like always protect that land. But one's like a warrior of the physical, one's a warrior of the spirit. And they're saying we always fought on that front, because to just fight a physical threat is going to come back. We have to like eradicate the things that like brought it about. It's more like feeling the energies. You feel the energies turn. You know, witches oftentimes have plants, because if you're taking good care of your plants and they start to turn, that's a sign that somebody's sending kind of negative energy towards you. You know, there's a lot that can be mitigated if you have that heads up on a spiritual level. Not everything should end up in physical fighting, you know, and you kind of messed it up if it does. Like, you should mediate things. You should, you know, and there used to be better systems in place for those kinds of things, but it does have a prominent Mars. Yeah. And I'm seeing Achilles in the movie Troy when I don't know why this was such a prescient moment for me, when he was talking to Briseis. They were in the tent and she was like throwing her hissy fit, and she was saying that basically like, he was unholy. That's like kind of what she was saying. And he was like, well, what about Ares, the god of war, who blankets his bed with the skins of the men he's killed? Is he not worthy of your respect? And like, he just describes that there is such a respect in love, like where you're mixing your blood with somebody else. Like that is an intimacy. There's a holiness there. And it also goes down to understanding that we live beyond just death. Like that there are some things that are worth fighting for, I guess. And not everything. It's a very small amount of things, but like, I keep hearing the word blood. It came through just like that in the reading that I was doing. I was like, I'm just hearing blood. And so that's why I haven't been able to put this reading out, is because there was a lot that was coming through that made me uncomfortable and that I didn't understand. But it really only made my logical mind uncomfortable. And I am trying to learn how to get out of the way and just to let whatever message is trying to be said, like without me judging it, or, you know, where the masculine is a warrior in the earth realm and the feminine one in the spiritual. Yeah. But it also, like, you can see how it could also be beneficial to have it also go the other way. Sometimes. Yeah. Gemini problems. And I just want to say, like, that was a weird message that comes through me. And I never want you to turn off your brain or, like, just accept these things. I don't know how I feel about it either. I'm just sharing it. So, Mars blood disorders. Mars rules the blood. Like, yeah, Mars rules the blood. The masculine is the keeper of the blood. And like, that's also the thing. That's why they need to be disciplined with their sexual energy. And it's also why, like, we have the certain rituals that we do where men buy women dinners before courting them, because they're basically seeking that sexual relationship. And in knowing what that does, before she even realizes she's pregnant, she has to have folic acid in her system. So it's just like, a healthy, well-adjusted man wants to make sure you're well fed before he engages in a sexual relationship with you. Compare that to like bar culture, and alcohol literally leaches nutrients from your system. It's entirely different energies, and it has to do with the masculine rules over health. Blood. The blood is central to health and immunity and, you know, all of that. So, yeah. All right. It's a message that makes so much sense. Every time you say the blood, I'm like, I know this voice. They kept saying in that weird voice, and I think they were doing that on purpose. The blood. Then the blood is like, you know, and it was like really just sticking with me. And I was like, what is this? Like, it came, that message, and it was shifting accents too. Like, and I was like, I've never done anything like this. So, yeah, just something to think about. It was a weird experience. And it scared me, and I ran away. So, I think that's all I have, you guys, for this reading. Thank you so much for showing up to our lovely Friday chit chat and intermingling of our energies and contemplation. So I just want to remind you this last message. They are really wanting you to just contemplate and like in that very open way. I don't remember exactly the way that I said it, but it was something like, oh, there was hidden truth. That was with this deck. There was a hidden truth here, and it comes out. It's connected to this relationship here. There's somebody that is afraid to contact you, but they, you know, everything that I said. But just hold all of this open. It has to do with integrating the shadow and also that element of chaotic good. So, okay. Okay. Also, something could happen through women here, like because chaos energy is the feminine energy. All right, so that's what I have for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you have a lovely moment. For those of you who are patrons, I do have a video that's supposed to come out tomorrow. It probably, hopefully, if it doesn't come out tomorrow, it'll come out Sunday or Monday. I just, again, my Pluto thing, like it really just kicked my butt, and I'm trying to get back online. But thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for being my crew, my fam, and I always look forward to these. Thank you guys. Aw. Yes. Have a good day. All right. Bye, guys.